We're here today, Quantum Buddha podcast number 7, I believe. Thank you very much for joining me, Ben, returning guest, and in person this time, which is fantastic to have you here. Just to remind everyone, Quantum Buddha is a podcast that talks about science, spirituality, self-mastery, and sex. And we are here today to talk about consistency. So, Ben, thank you for joining.
Thank you for having me.
So I've got Mr. 365 Days of Ice Bath Challenge here with me, and I thought it would be a good chance for us to ask you some questions. You've been doing it for almost a full year now, right?
Yeah.
How long you got left?
I'm on day 359. I've completed today.
Wow, less than a week then.
Yeah.
Fantastic. So it's just amazing to kind of have been following along your journey. Of course, I've been speaking to you and I know a little bit about what it's been like from the inside, but it's what we're here to do today is to share that journey with the people and let them know about what it's been like for you. You know, of course, you've been sharing it on your Instagram, so we can talk about that as well, what it's been like to maybe do those videos, but also, you know, what has it been like for you from a behind the scenes perspective, you know, some things that people may not think about, some things that you've experienced that you've not shared with anyone, and some things that you've learned maybe along the way as well as what the future looks like, what's coming on next for you. So I think a good place to start would be, who are you?
Yeah, so I'm Ben Laing. I'm from Scotland. I do ice baths, but I also have multiple businesses, very active in sport through football, running, gym, and yeah, I enjoy a variety of things. I've realised that I don't just stick to one thing. I actually enjoy being a master of many things. So I do challenge myself quite often. Like if I don't have a challenge, like I don't feel like I'm alive. That's just my identity. So this is why I take on things like ice bath challenges, starting businesses, which is the biggest challenge, and marathons and things like that, because it tests me out and helps me to see, you know, putting all the books that I've read to practice, putting all the information that I've learned into practice and in the field. Like actually I heard, I think it's Tim Ferriss talks about it being a guinea pig.
Yeah.
Like he talks about being a guinea pig in some of his books.
Yeah.
And he likes to experiment with himself. And I always quite like that idea because it's great being book smart and having theory, but I've always been interested in like the execution, like doing the execution myself and really being that person of experience, because those are the people that have the substance. When I've watched them on YouTube or podcasts, that like the wise teachers that we follow are not people who are book smart, they're people who have like actually walked it as well. So I've always been inspired by that type of person, and that's me as well. Like there's always this choice of you either write a book about someone else or someone writes a book about you. I always prefer the latter, where I want to be the person just to go and live and have the experiences and have an awesome life and be able to like report back on that life.
Yeah.
And that's like I like doing things like podcasts and having a chance to share, because that's part of the journey, part of the process. But most of the time I want to be out there taking action. So that's a good bit about like how I think and like how I act. That defines me quite well. I've obviously got children, a family, 4 kids, a wife, and I've always had a dream of being an entrepreneur, doing what I'm doing today. I've always had quite a early inspiration from my dad. So a big part of who I am, and I think that's true to anyone who's grown up with their parents, or it could be your grandparents who you grew up with. It depends who you grew up with, but I grew up with my dad and my mum, and my dad was quite a big inspiration and influence to me, and he helped me actually, like, gave me this avenue for entrepreneurship, which not a lot of people get that insight on, that as a path. for my dad, it seemed like his only path through his life. He didn't like show up at high school, or he like skipped high school and just like did lots of random things. But I think a large part of who I am today is, you know, massively influenced by my dad as well, and my mum. So I've got maybe the disciplined, masculine, like work ethic from my dad, but I've got like the kindness and the sort of spiritual aspect from my mum, and I've got that balance from the two of them. I'm very different from my dad. Me and my dad, you know, don't agree on everything, but we also agree a lot on like wealth and business and things. So I think you get a lot of balance from your environment, who you grew up with, who you spent time with as a child. So I did spend time with my parents. I was quite lucky to have that. But, you know, as I grew up and became my own person more and grew a bit more apart from my dad and became more like finding out who actually I am, not just Derek's son, you know, like my dad's son. So like being able to actually explore all these things of who is it I am. And one of the things I love is obviously this, being able to get into flow, have good conversations, talk about pretty big things like philosophy, and be able to explore and actually make your own philosophy, like being able to create your own philosophy. We're actually writing a book this weekend. That's why I'm down here in London. So
exactly.
We're here to film the podcast. It's your birthday weekend tomorrow.
Indeed.
Happy birthday tomorrow.
Thank you.
And
please don't start singing.
And on Monday we're writing a book. So that's a big part of, like, we call it 5% projects. Like, I got that idea from how Google work on side projects where they develop these softwares on the side, and these become quite big softwares. Like, some of the softwares that we use, Google software, has been created from those little 5% projects that were successful. And there's people who are, you know, taken aside, and they're allowed to spend 5% of their time just on creative work to develop something brand new. So this is what I enjoy in that 5% time. That's sort of my purpose, like what I'm developing, and it's what we're doing today. I think when you're never completely clear or have complete clarity on what your purpose is, something to do with my purpose is philosophy, knowledge, learning, discussing, debating, sharing ideas. These are like some of the core things that describe like who am I, and like what's my purpose. And I'm still exploring that. I'm only 35. You know, I probably spent some of my life going down the wrong paths and finding out that's the wrong path and coming back. So I would say I feel like I'm still early in the process, but I've been about for a long time. I've been semi-famous for being the book guy with Ben's Business Book Club. And the podcasts, and that's interviewing people. Like, I've always been interested and very curious about learning. So the core of all of that is probably learning and sharing. Like, that's a big part of who I am, and I've discovered that I am. But as you go down this journey, it's just about always getting more self-awareness of who you are, and that never stops. Like, it takes a long time. I've actually been weeding, as we call it, weeding our ego, but weeding and letting go of old parts of me. I was doing a process today and actually working out, I've not got that much to let go of now. I found that part of a process hard. The adding on, I found that a bit easier. I've got things I want to do, but Virr and I, and the community of Super Genius, who we first started it with, and all these different areas communities that we're in, that we're learning about, like hypnotherapy, quantum regression, super consciousness. A large part of that is not just like adding things on, it's about subtraction and taking things away that no longer serve you. So things that are in your mind, in your unconscious mind, that are dysfunctional, not serving. And as I've got rid of more and more of those things, including people that no longer serve me as well, environments that no longer serve me, and move into better environments that's more for like what I want, aligned with what I want, that's when I've become more aware of who I am. And by letting go of a lot, by giving it up, because in the start of your life, you're just adding all these things on and carrying them along with you. So as I've let go of them, that's where I've started to become more self-aware, to realize that who I am. But I do think I'm still on the journey to actually not answer that question completely clear.
Yeah, completely makes sense. And like some of the things you've said is the fact that you really love to challenge yourself.
Yeah.
Of course, it makes sense that you've set this challenge for yourself. But, you know, something that comes to my mind is with all of these other things that are going on in your life, you know, your family, congratulations on having your fourth kid, by the way, not too long ago, your businesses, multiple businesses, being a speaker, you know, so many things that you're doing, being a footballer as well. Why did you decide to start doing the ice baths?
Playing football was like, we talk about our bliss, and our bliss is the thing that gets you away from the day-to-day.
Yeah.
It's the place where you find peace. For me, peace is like flow, when you're in flow and you're just enjoying yourself. So what is that, the thing that you can do that can take you into flow? That can be reading. But for me, I found that running, intense running, or long distance running, or football is my bliss. And I got my bliss taken away from me when I got an injury in my piriformis, which is like near your glute. And it was a very painful injury, and I could hardly walk my dog. So I had to stop playing football for a whole season, which sucked. And I had to like explore what's next. So because of that ambitious, motivated, energetic person that I am, that energy's had to get directed somewhere to find, I guess, like a new bliss. Like I had to work a way around not having my bliss, which is football or running. That was gone. I wasn't able to go to the gym because I had a shoulder injury as well. So I was really looking for something to challenge me, mentally and physically. And I explored a few things. I actually got into swimming. You know about that. So I was pretty bad at swimming at high school, but I found that that's a bit of cardio I can do with a few injuries. So I got into swimming and just did lengths of swimming every morning, Monday to Friday. But I guess I was missing something. And I'd heard about ice baths that were getting popular last year as well. They seem to really get really popular.
Yeah, I've heard of Wim Hof. Yeah. Is that relevant as well? Yeah,
Wim Hof. I've seen him about, and I know about his stuff. But really, I've not been a big follower of Wim Hof. Like, I've not really followed his journey fully. I've heard a lot about him. And I think I was inspired by him to try cold showers. And
because he had this idea of like... I think ice bath, I think Wim Hof, but that might not be the right kind of connection.
I think it's just because it's a good business model to sell like the ice baths, and like that's been marketed and it's just kind of blowing up. But I know people who've been doing cold water therapy for years, like way before it got popular.
Yeah.
And I'm only discovering that now, that like this has been a popular thing for a long time.
Where did you find it actually? Where did you first hear about it?
My brother did it. Okay. My brother did sea dips. My barber, who's cut my hair for ages now, she did sea dips as well.
Right.
Sea swims. Bernie, who was like one of my first spiritual teachers when I lived in North Berwick, she did sea dips as well. So like I'd always known about it. I'd done some like Looney Dukes on the New Year's Day, where you run into the sea with a group of people. Yeah. So I'd experienced like cold water stuff, but I can't really remember where. Someone actually bought me the ice tub.
Oh yes. You said, was it Gemma?
Yeah, Gemma got me it for my birthday or Christmas.
Right.
Because Gemma's quite good at buying presents for me. She always nails it. I didn't know that. Yeah, I didn't know that I wanted an ice bath. So I was like, oh no, that's been a waste of a present.
Right.
At first, but it came at the right time because then I had that injury. I was kind of lost for a challenge, and I was like, I'll try out this ice bath thing.
Okay.
And this is something I'm going to do. I'm going to document it on video. I'm going to do it every day for 365 days. We know how public commitment works really well.
Yeah.
So when you publicly commit yourself to say you're going to do something publicly, there's a part of our psychology that doesn't want to fail publicly. So we do better and we try harder, and it's a bit of a structure for yourself. So I thought, instead of just doing it casually like everyone else, I'm going to do it my way and I'm going to do it 365 days every day for a whole year.
What made you choose, a year, like 365 days? I understand doing it for a week or a month or something. But...
So I remember like thinking, I've done 21-day challenges on different things, like food, diets and things like that. And it doesn't last very long. It's like, once it's over, the habit's gone. It's like, it's lost. And I think if you decide to do something for a whole year, it shows commitment.
Yeah.
And consistency. And I had a belief that I wasn't consistent. So that was sort of part of the goal of the whole challenge as well, was to pick something and do it for longer instead of doing it half-hearted and like cancelling halfway through, or only doing it for 20 days, like trying to do something like consistently for a long time. Because as an entrepreneur, self-employed person, you've not really got any structure. Yeah. No one's holding you accountable apart from yourself.
Yeah, that's what they don't tell you about being your own boss.
Yeah, so like I wake up every morning, even if I wake up late, I'll see people the same day every day walking to the train station, going to work, that same person. And I'm like, wow, that person's super consistent and very disciplined.
Yeah.
And sometimes when I've not been like out there and being consistent, I'll see these people and it almost like diminishes or it reduces my own self-esteem. So like, and that belief in myself to be consistent. So it was kind of like I wanted a bit of that. I was like, I want to know that I can be consistent again. Because I have been consistent in the past when I had jobs. But when you're self-employed, you've got a lot of flexibility and freedom. And I did always want that. But you can lose that through being self-employed for 10 years.
Yeah.
Like, there's too much flexibility that you will have wobbles where you just take the freedom and don't be disciplined. So I wanted to rebuild my discipline, rebuild my self-esteem, rebuild the belief in myself that I can be consistent and just commit to something and do it the whole time. But I also believed that there would be something really special in doing something challenging, like the stoicism aspect of it, and encouraged me to do it as well. Stoicism is like a moral philosophy. If you follow it, you will feel better self-esteem wise, mentally, and you're sort of hardening your your mind to take on anything in life. So stoicism's always been a philosophy I've been interested in. I've not completely practiced, but Ice Bath Challenge was definitely a practice of stoicism as well.
That's very interesting.
So there's many aspects of this challenge combined into one of reasons why I was doing it.
Yeah.
I think number one was the belief in being consistent, that I can be consistent, that the belief that I was not consistent, to change that belief that I can be
kind
consistent.
Of proving it to yourself.
Yeah, to myself. No, that was a very silent goal that no one really needed to know.
Yeah.
I think I mentioned it in one of my Ice Bath videos later on.
Yeah.
But I didn't actually publicize this is why I'm doing it. I think I actually realized I didn't realize I was doing that for that exact reason until a bit later.
Yeah.
But that's a big part of the purpose, to keep going. But yeah, doing something for a whole year like that's challenging will really shape your character. I knew that would be the case. So that was part of the reason. Like, I'm all about like personal growth and mastering life. So mastering my psychology.
Character building.
Yeah. Stoicism's a big part of it. Like that's what you would call that. Like a lot of people would call it stoicism. So that would be the easy way to describe it universally that people understand. But for me, it's just personal development in the real world, like physically. Reading a book's personal development, but like getting into an ice bath is also personal development, because this is like, okay, I've read a book on how to get into an ice bath now, or you've watched this podcast and I'm going to teach people how to get into an ice bath, but like go and actually do it now. So like then go and actually execute for a whole year now and see if you can do that. That's it's easier to just like talk about it and think about it. It's harder to actually go and do it. So I wanted to just go and do it.
Yeah, one of my mentors, Manmeet, talks about like actually learning about personal development and doing personal, doing
development,
is actually two different things, two separate things. So it's exactly what you're saying. It's putting it into practice, going and executing for a whole year. So that's really interesting to kind of learn a bit more about why you did it. So what was it like, especially at the start? What was it like to start doing it? You started in the dead of winter, so
Yeah,
what was that like?
I started in December, like around the 10th of December,
Yeah.
and it was like brutal. My wife has actually joined me this winter
Yeah.
out of the blue.
Oh, she's been doing it in winter as
Yeah,
well?
she just
Wow.
started in winter, and I was like, she's a beast. She did it on the worst. She did the ice bath with me like a week ago at the worst day I've ever been in it.
I saw the video
Yeah.
of you cracking the ice.
Yeah. So
Yeah.
she joined me that day we've got 2 ice tubs. I borrowed my brother's, and Gemma got into my one. I went into my brother's one, but she joined me at like 6 in the morning because
Yeah.
James, my youngest, my baby, is still sleeping, and she came out with me and did it. Like, we did it quickly because the baby's sleeping.
Yeah.
And we were like, there wasn't as much time to think about going in. I don't normally take my time on the hard days.
Yeah.
She was just like wanting to go right in, and it was brutally cold. When the seasons change, like when it goes from autumn to like this is full on winter. It was like full on winter, and we're only like half a week into it, and it was just the hardest day. But
Yeah.
Gemma got into it with me this year,
That's amazing.
and it made me just like question like how hard I found it last year. Like I was like, oh no, I was being a bit weak there. But yeah, I think when it's easier to do it with someone than on your own though.
Yeah.
So like I wasn't being weak. I was just finding it tough because I'm out there doing it by myself. But yeah, I started in the worst season to start it. Then again, like I then had spring and summer to look forward to.
Yeah.
So I've been through winter. It started in winter. It got easier in spring, really easy in summer. Like there was almost no point in doing it. And then back into autumn, and then boom, winter, we're back in again. So
And you're almost done.
yeah, and I think it's perfectly set up because like it starts off really hard, it gets easy, and then it ends really hard.
Yeah.
It's like at the end of a marathon when you've got all the resistance to stop.
Yeah.
I feel like that resistance has hit me. It's the worst November we've ever had.
Yeah, it's been pretty brutal.
Yeah,
Especially, I'm in London.
in Scotland. Yeah.
I'm enjoying the slightly warmer temperature, but
Yeah.
for you it's ice. So, wow, yeah. So I guess, obviously a good place to start is it was pretty difficult at the start because of the fact that it was so cold. But, what have been some of the hardest challenges you've had to encounter over the last year whilst you've been doing it?
Well, definitely the day when I could stand on the ice, that it wouldn't even break when I stood on the ice tub.
Jesus.
So I stood on top of it. It wasn't breaking. It was that thick. So I had to I got a hammer. It wouldn't break through it. So I had to go and get like a proper sledgehammer
Wow.
to get through it. I couldn't find a full-on sledgehammer. I got in between one.
Yeah.
And it took ages to like crack through it. But it stuck. The actual ice stuck to my back.
Wow.
When I got out. Like the ice. The weather was so cold outside. It was like -5. And then the water can only be 0. It can't be below 0.
Oh, really?
The water, because it's still water. If it was below, if the water
it'd be
was
frozen.
yeah. If this is something that blew my mind as I experiment with so much water and ice, is like water, which is it's funny that I didn't know this knowledge, but why would I know it? If the water is minus, the water can't be minus.
Yeah, because
it can't be water. It would
zero
be
is
ice.
frozen. Yeah,
the whole
exactly.
bucket would be ice if it was
Right,
If it was
so
minus.
the water has to be slightly warmer, and it's just the top layer that's exposed.
Yeah, so
to
if
the
you think
cold.
about like outside is -5.
Yeah,
But the coldest the water can be is about 0 to 1.
and so the actual ice bath equipment that you have keeps the water at that temperature, is it?
No.
Oh,
no.
really?
No, because if it's like the seawater stays the same all the time. But like, obviously the outer environment shapes how cold the water is going to be.
Yeah.
But really the water can't go any below 0.
So what stops it from the whole thing from freezing up?
Well, I suppose like I did get ice that thick before.
Okay,
I don't know the science to that.
right.
But
There
in
must be some insulation with the fact that it's in the ice
Yeah, I guess
bath.
so, yeah. So it has been really thick to the point it's like hard to get in it because it's all ice. But you've had to crack through and, like I said, get the sledgehammer out. So that was probably the hardest. Like, I think what I realised though is it was the hardest thing mentally to see that and go, oh my God, I'm getting my body in there. And it's this cold outside. Because like your hands, and you know when you go for a walk and it's really cold, your hands and your feet get cold and you just want to go inside and warm up. I would get outside from my back garden to go into the ice bath. And I was I felt that way.
Yeah.
And my hands were cold. I would maybe touch the ice and like break up the ice. And if I touched the ice, I felt like going inside. But I was like, no, I have to now get in there. And I couldn't really work out how that was going to be possible because my hands were that cold already just from touching ice. I'm now going to get in that water with the ice.
Wow.
That was mentally really, really hard. And I think when it's dark, there's mornings I've had a flight in the morning. I've never done this again. That's why I got a train down to London this time, a wee bit later in the morning. Like it was 6:30 I came down to London this morning, but I had a really early flight. That was probably the worst day.
Yeah.
I think I set my cortisol way too high that morning, and I had like a bit of anxiety that day because I woke up, I think went in the ice bath first thing because I had no time to think. I had a plane to catch. So I was up, I had a small routine in the morning to get up, ice bath, have a coffee, then go in the bath. Like two of the worst things, like your cortisol is already high, I discovered, when you wake up. Ice baths, your cortisol is going to go a bit higher because you get a bit of anxiety to go into the water. Then coffee on top of that, caffeinated coffee. So there's three things that really, and in flights, I'm scared of flying.
Yeah.
So 4 things that just my cortisol levels like went way too high that day.
Yeah.
And I was like, you know, a wreck being in London, and it wasn't a good day. But that was probably the most challenging day. It affects after an ice bath. Any other day of the year, this is like the positive of the ice baths is it actually most of the case like regulates and makes you feel amazing. But I think if you do it when you're stressed already, you might as well not do it because you're not going to get the like mental benefits. It can backfire if you overdo your cortisol like by being stressed about something and then making yourself more stressed. So I think it's important to go into ice baths in your own time, slowly, and be relaxed when you go in, not be stressed when you go in. I would even say it's probably dangerous. I've not died. Nothing's happened to me. That's a big thing. Like I have survived. That's a big, like, honestly, there's days where I've just thought I'm going to die. And like I've done it anyway because that's I understand how the mind works, that like that's courage, that's like overcoming fear. False expectations appearing real. Like I've always thought fear is false expectations appearing real, the acronym that I've learned in personal development, and using that in practice over and over, like every day when it's really cold. But there is days your body feels like is reacting like you're going to die. So the coldest mornings and the darkest mornings, and when you're on your own, no one's supporting you, that's so hard. And cracking through the ice mentally is like so hard to then know that you're going in it.
Yeah.
And when your hands freeze up before you've even got into the ice bath, you almost want to go back into the house to warm up to then go in your ice bath. It like doesn't logically make much sense.
How do you overcome that? You know, how?
Sometimes you do go back in the house to warm up.
Okay.
Because you need to. It's kind of like, you know, when you overdo it running.
Right.
You just stop running. Just like stop.
Yeah.
And then you can get your breath back and then you can go again. So sometimes in running, it's important actually to stop when you feel like your lungs are going to blow up. Don't just keep running. Like actually slow down, get your breath back. Because a lot of the time it's mental.
Yeah.
And it makes your heart rate go faster, your cortisol's high, your anxiety increases, and then like you blow up. But you just to manage anxiety, I've learned, is don't let yourself blow up.
Okay.
Don't let yourself go past the red mark, almost. Like stay below that and regulate yourself and stop if you need to, or go inside, warm your hands up and then go in the ice bath. Like, just calm down. Don't go in an ice bath when you're stressed. That it's like a disaster.
Okay.
And don't go in it in a hurry as well. So ideally, like give yourself a good morning routine if you're going to be doing ice baths. Yeah. I've managed to do it. I've scraped by every day, and I try and do them in the morning because there's no chance with my busy lifestyle that I might forget through the day, so I don't. I was going to say, and it's just inconvenient getting wet like middle of the day. Yeah, having a bath. Are there any days that it almost didn't happen? Yeah, there has been, but like just finishing what you were saying about that is those factors. Like maybe there's like something more stressful later in the day that day.
Yeah.
It's like we were talking about how traveling is stressful for everyone. Everyone gets a bit anxious on the day that you have to travel somewhere.
Yeah.
Because you're leaving your comfort zone behind. You're taking a bag and you're off.
Yeah.
Like that's stressful. So I think the hardest days of ice baths has been like when I've been leaving for a flight early or something like that.
Yeah.
And I don't have a lot of time to like think about it and have to get in. No one's supporting me. It's cold, like freezing cold. And it's dark. It's like middle of the night.
Yeah.
It's like 4 a.m, 5 a.m, getting into that. It's like, this is quite dangerous. No one's going to find me if I freeze up here and like drown in my ice bath. So that's really scary and mentally hard to crack through ice in the dark in that situation. You feel very alone and very vulnerable. So like doing that and then getting into that, like mentally, that's so much harder than actually when you're in. It's really sore sometimes. Sometimes your skin goes red. My skin goes like really bright red when I get out when it's really cold. So it's never been harder than like I've mentally thought in a lot of the cases when it's really cold like that. Like when you over anticipate how hard it's going to be, when you actually get in, it's never as bad as you think. Especially if it's colder outside, because the water is actually warmer than outside.
Yeah, makes sense.
Which, again, blows my mind.
Yeah, I imagine you must have had days where you're like, actually, I'm quite happy to be in this ice bath.
Yeah.
It's warmer than standing outside. Yeah. Yeah. My question was, are there any days it almost didn't happen? Like, so you just mentioned like it's days where it was maybe stormy. Did that, stop you? Like, yeah, anything, times where maybe you forgot or like it got really late in the day or, anything that might have stopped it from happening or anything like that?
I think there has been a day like, I can't remember a specific day, but there has been days I've done it late in the day and like that's dangerous because you just get on with your day and you forget. Like I personally in this challenge needed to do it in the morning because it's done, it's dusted. I don't have to think about it. And like if I didn't do it in the morning, I sort of felt like I'd lost, like I was a loser because it's kind of like skipping the gym or like something that you plan to do in the morning. It's like I said I was going to do it. Ideally in the morning, like when I don't do it, I'm going about the rest of the day ruminating and thinking about ice bath. I just didn't want to have that. So I can't think of a specific day where I almost missed it, but there has been days where I've almost not wanted to do it completely. Like I've almost totally chickened out from doing it. And sometimes when I'm getting in and it's feeling really, really cold that day, sometimes that can be because I've warmed up from walking. My body's nice and warm, or I've maybe eaten food, I've got nice and cozy in the house. Like sometimes when your body's really warm or like in this warm state, comfort, and then going in ice baths even harder. But like see if you wake up first thing and you go straight in, sometimes that can be the best way to do it because you've just not overthought it. But yeah, there's not really been a day where there's just been challenges. Like I've had to navigate like being away or like not having my cold tub with me.
Well, what did you do in those situations?
So I just filled up baths in the hotel room. We're working out what I'm going to do in London while I'm here. So it's just like finding a way. There's always a way. Where there's a will, there's a way. So that was when you set a public commitment challenge that you don't want to fail and you're documenting every day. Like you tap into that where there's a will, there's a way. Like especially when I'm this far in, like I'm not going to lose now. And I've made sure, like I've said, we will do it, we might do it in the evenings, but I was saying I want to do it in the morning just in case I forget. So
or even just in case you get too comfortable, like you said.
So getting it done in the morning is just part of the routine now. It feels easy. That's another part of it. It's like,
that's amazing.
It's very routine. Like I actually find myself like even when I don't have my watch on, I look for my watch. Like I sort of like have this routine in my body. My body's just like automatically going into it now. It's like making it easier. So I think that's a really important thing for habit building, is find a way of making it automatic. Like your body's got this sort of ritual as it's going to do something, and like you get used to that ritual. So you do step 1, 2, and 3. Like I tie the knot on my my swimming shorts, I
Yeah.
take a few deep breaths, I press start on my 3 minutes, and then I step in.
Right.
Like that's
So
my
it's your
sort of
little
ritual.
Mm.
And by doing that, my body's setting itself ready for going into it, so it's not as
Yeah.
hard.
Yeah, that's really interesting. Like, my brother Rishi's really helped me to get into a journaling routine from what he does. Is
Yeah.
like he wakes up in the morning, starts brewing his coffee and makes the coffee so he can sit down and do the journal with the coffee.
Right.
And he created that association by, doing the journaling, which was sort of building that discipline, building that habit
Yeah.
of something that's good for him by having the coffee that he really enjoys.
Yeah.
So kind of that, like you say, that routine.
It's habit stacking.
Habit stacking,
Yeah,
exactly.
Yeah.
So in fact, this is really great because we've started to move from, the challenges, that kind of thing, to now the benefits, the positives. So tell me some more about the impact that it's had in your life, the positive things. How's your life changed by doing this?
Some people, it's funny, like recognize me for doing ice baths now.
Really?
Like, that's one of the first things that people ask me when they see me. So like, it's not like, how's your business, how's your family? It's like, how's the ice baths going? So like, I've got this sort of like identity to being the person who's done ice baths, which is quite funny. That's not changed my life, but it's been funny. Like, I've been recognized for that. Didn't think that would be, like, not from people who know me, and maybe from like new people, but like the people who know me, that's the first thing they ask me when I've not seen them in a long time. So it's pretty cool. How has it changed my life? I would say, being maybe in my mid-30s, I think it's definitely helped with the ability to train the way that I want to train, to train hard in football. There was a point where I was playing football for 2 teams this year, and I was training 3 days a week and playing 1 football match. And I did that when I was younger, but I would have struggled to do that without the ice baths. I've been getting into saunas as well, so between the saunas and the ice baths, my inflammation is like almost non-existent. If I feel it, I know that I've got an ice bath the next morning to go and relieve that.
Yeah.
So like, I'm just healing my body every morning from any pain, niggles, back pain, anything. Like, my wife has joined me because she's got back pain.
Yeah.
And she literally says that that's cleared her back pain, like, for the rest of the day when she's done it. So, especially when it's this cold, because it freezes you, it's like really cold. And that's a huge benefit, to not feel pain, doing it every day and not feeling pain. One of the things is, it's like the ultimate espresso. So like, I've noticed when I'm walking to the school drop off with my kids and my wife, and I notice like some parents look like zombies. Like, they look like they just woke up.
Yeah.
And they look tired. They look like what I used to look like before I did ice baths. But ice baths, like the ultimate espresso, like, they wake you up, and they wake you up in a different way from an espresso from coffee, because you don't have a crash from it. It instantly wakes you up. So for me, I need to put my head down to get that effect.
Right.
So I head dunk almost every time. There's times where it's really cold where I go, I'm just not doing it. Like, it wasn't part of my challenge, it wasn't part of my commitment, but it's a bonus.
I never thought of it of like technique when it comes to ice baths.
Yeah. So every time I get in the ice bath, I hold my nose and I put my head in at the same time as I get my body in.
Yeah.
So I got my body and submerge my whole body, including my head. Make sure I get my hair right under as well.
Additional benefits to do it that way?
Yes, because you've got inflammation in your head as well. Like, your body's got inflammation, your head's got inflammation. So like, brain fog, it wipes brain fog out. And if you're doing it early in the morning to start your day, it wakes you up, like, more than a coffee will ever do.
Yeah.
And it will give you lasting effect throughout the morning, throughout the day.
Yeah.
So for that reason, it's an amazing thing that I don't think I'll ever stop doing it because of that. And I heard my brother saying it lifts his mood, like, it helps with his mood. I don't really have any problems with my mood most of the time. Sometimes I used to have a problem with my mood, but we're talking about earlier that I've let go of a lot of stuff through ego weeding and journaling. That my mood is actually pretty high most of the time, like pretty joyful most of the time. But that's because I've done all that work on myself. But it's a bonus. That's what an ice bath is to me. It's like an extra boost on top of it. Like, so I thought about this the other day, actually. I was like, I don't really want to give up the ice baths, because for me, I want to be the person who brings the energy to the room. Like, I want to be the party starter and like lift everyone else up, because I feel like the world needs that.
Yeah.
Like you go to certain environments and it needs that. It needs like someone who's like shining and like got that much energy. So that's always been my purpose and vision that I've had of myself, is that I'll be this like super high positive person who brings people up and leads people. So you need to lead people, you need to like be able to lead yourself and feel good in yourself. So I think that is a big part, like personally, that's a really big part of it, because like I want to show up for my kids, I want to show up for my inner circle, but my outer circle as well, which is the whole world.
Yeah.
So like I want to, if I'm going to have energy for the whole world, or like, you know, be able to do things like this and bring my whole energy to the table, doing things like an ice bath is only going to help. And sticking your head right under and getting rid of that brain fog and waking yourself up is very good for your brain, I think. Like it cleanses your brain and like resets you in the morning by getting that shock right through your head, right through your body. And then I find myself like giggling and like dancing and like feeling really good, like especially in the cold days.
Wow.
Like I'll get this natural high, like a runner's high.
Yeah.
But it's maybe slightly better than a runner's high. So it's like I think it was yesterday I said to Gemma, like for some reason I was just giggling after my ice bath.
Yeah.
So like that's pretty good. That's like some dopamine right there, like very natural.
Real dopamine, yeah.
Yeah. So I don't need it for my mood. Some people do, but I think for that reason everyone should do it. Like, and I shouldn't stop doing it.
Yeah.
Because it's benefiting me. I think that part of me that wants some comfort wants a break from ice baths, but I'll probably not want to lose the habit.
That's very interesting. So I've got two more questions that I want to ask you before we do finish up. So one of them was, so, you know, it's good that you talked about not breaking the habit. So what's next? You know, what's next for you after you reach the end of your 365 days? What does the future hold?
I'm thinking about what I'm going to do on day 365. I'm not going to tell anyone what's in my mind, but I've got some crazy ideas.
Follow the Instagram for that.
Yeah. I actually haven't got my videos up to date as well. That's one of the big challenges we've not talked about.
Okay.
Like, the video log is that was the hard challenge part of it. It made me know what it's like to be a proper content creator.
Yeah.
Like getting my tripod and setting it up. Like that's the easy part. It's the distribution of the content that's the hard part, and it costs a lot of money to try and delegate that, especially on something that's not producing you income.
Yeah.
So that's been a big part of it. But what's going to happen after it, I'm going to take a break from ice baths. I'll just put my ice bath away in the shed. I'm going to do more sea dips.
Okay.
But I genuinely think me and my wife will continue doing them on a Saturday together.
Yeah.
Like Gemma does them at the weekend with me when we've not got the morning routine of getting the kids ready.
Yeah.
It's going to buy back some time for me, to be honest. Like I'm not going to do it as consistently. I'm not going to do what this other crazy guy is doing. I think he's on day 600. He did the 365 days and then he just kept on going.
Wow.
But that's not going to be me. Like that's not what's important to me. It was to complete this challenge was important to me.
Yeah.
And actually complete something, like be like complete it and put it away, but know that I've got that in me to do that now and utilize the benefits we just talked about frequently, probably a maximum of 3 days a week.
Yeah.
A minimum of once every 2 weeks.
Yeah.
But keep the habit of submerging myself in cold water forever, because it's such it's got so many benefits that I don't want to lose that. And I also don't want to get weak either. I want to be able to like maintain that ability to go into cold water. And
yeah, you mentioned that to me, overcoming that overcoming the cold.
Yeah, I think it's just going to be part of like everything I teach and things as well. It's going to be like, I imagine myself in a workshop in the future, and we'll do yoga and we'll do some ice baths.
Yeah.
Things like that. So like, I think I already started a bit of a movement anyway, because I started like bringing people into my garden, and like they were joining me.
I came as
you've
well.
done one. So like everyone in my inner circle has pretty much done an ice bath now, apart from my dad and my sister, I think. So I need to get them in.
There you go. Get them in.
Use their next. So that's pretty much the future, is that I'm gonna get my time back, and I'm looking forward to that. I'm not gonna have it in my morning routine, but I'm gonna do it flexibly, casually, the way that I like to do things, and I'm gonna tick that challenge off. And right now I'm playing football. I've got my bliss back. I'll probably put a bit more time into the gym in the morning, because although it's only 3 minutes in the ice bath, the procrastination before getting in the ice bath, the getting out the ice bath and being absolutely freezing, not being able to do anything, then warming up, then getting dressed, like that doesn't take 3 minutes, that takes half an hour. Roughly. So
I remember,
it doesn't take 3 minutes, it takes half an hour. So it's what I didn't realize when I took on this challenge was how much time I was going to take to do that every morning. So that actually subtracts and takes away from like my kids in the morning, which is quite important to me. So I'm actually going to put that time towards my kids in the morning, and then maybe like add on later on. Maybe I'm not adding anything on right now. I'm just like happy to get that time back. I'm going to give that to like cooking the kids breakfast in the morning before they go to school. I'm going to keep doing it at the weekend with my wife, and then I might include it in a routine later on. But I'm probably going to distribute that attention to the gym and spend more time in the gym.
What impact has this had on your businesses? Because you, like you said, a big part of who you are is being an entrepreneur. So being a businessman and an owner of multiple businesses, you're part of more than just two or three businesses. So what impact has it had on your businesses?
Well, going back to like clearing brain fog and resilience of like doing this challenge and resetting that belief about how consistent and disciplined I can be and can commit to things. I think those things are transferable into everything, including business. So as a leader, as a business owner, and a dad and everything, a sports person, I'm able to transfer the character building that I've had through this challenge into all of those aspects of life, including business. So that's a huge thing. It's like every experience we go through, we grow. We're now not here, we're now here. So for me, I'm all about growth. So I've grown as a person, and that person runs these businesses. So it's automatically going to sprinkle into all those businesses through my energy, who I've become by experiencing that. So it's all about who you become, not like what you actually achieve or what you earn, like what you get from it is, there's stories about like billionaires going bankrupt, but like automatically going back up to being billionaires like a year or two later, because they have that ability from their experience to go there because I've been there before. So for me, that's what this is about. It's not about like a specific thing that I can think of that it's directly impacted my bottom line in my businesses, but the person I've become into the businesses. Well,
something you've mentioned to me is that like this year has been one of your most successful years in business. So I wonder if there's some links and correlation.
And again, I think personal brand, I think attention is quite an important thing as well. My videos aren't even out there yet. Like I've only uploaded about 200. So like there's a lot of really interesting videos, because in every video I started doing a meditation and then talking and sharing a pretty powerful lesson just from like impromptu, just from my intuition, like what was obvious to share that day. But every day I actually shared a lot of really valuable videos. So I've created a lot of really good content, business content as well, in that, sitting in the ice bath. And I didn't intend to do that when I started the challenge, but it just sort of happened to fill up that 3 minutes I'm sitting there. I thought I would do something productively with it. And
Yeah.
again, like, people recognize me for being a person who does ice baths. So a lot of people have been watching, like, without me realizing it, because I'll maybe bumped into some I've not seen in ages in the sauna, and they'll say, "How's the ice bath?" So I think, like, there's been a spillover of, like, people paying attention to me through doing a crazy challenge.
Yeah.
But, like, then, you know, they know that I have these businesses, so, like, reminding people about you. So it's made me more relevant, I think. Like, you know, I've not been putting that much content out, and, like, before I started that challenge, this challenge has made me really become a content creator. So,
Yeah.
you know, I've maybe become famous or popular, micro famous for a random thing.
Yeah.
But I think, like, all attention's good attention, I've learned in business as well. So you can direct that attention to business if you want. But I think it's, like, added a random aspect to, an interesting aspect to my overall persona for people, that,
Yeah.
like, I do crazy shit.
Amazing. It's been really wonderful to hear about all your experiences and, you know, your journey of doing the ice bath. So thank you so much for taking the time to come and share all of your knowledge, and look forward to seeing all the content you're going to put out from the remaining days, and also look forward to seeing what you do next.
Thank you.
Amazing.
Would you like to give us an introduction about who is Virr Haria?
Wow, that's a big question. It's interesting. I did a therapy session yesterday, and we did this inner meditation where I connected with my higher self, and I got a couple of words in that really resonate with me. So those three words are joy, freedom, and the third one was courage. Yeah, so joy, freedom, and courage. And those three things are really relevant to my name. So Vir, you know, means brave, courage. Krishan or Krishna is a Hindu god who's portrayed as like a child. So a lot of joy, you know, sort of innocence, and free as well, you know. So yeah, my name kind of resonates with those three words. So just felt like an obvious place to start is something that I sort of explored yesterday in that therapy session.
That's cool.
Yeah, but, you know, more about who I am. I am Quantum Buddha.
Yeah.
You know, I think that's a really good place as well to express. So I've been sort of trying to figure out my path in life for a very long time, and I feel like I am at a place where I'm quite happy to put this out there into the world and say, you know, this is what I'm here to do. I had this vision a few years ago when we first did Super Genius, actually, and we did the Land of Plenty meditation.
Yeah.
This was something from that meditation, from those, you know, circle exercises that we did. It was this vision of me as some sort of digital guru, you know, sharing wisdom, and like Gandhi, sharing this kind of non-violent sort of a spiritual message in sort of a digital platform. And
when you say digital, you just mean like on social media and
like you know, like YouTube or social media or wherever. But it's interesting because at the time I really didn't understand it. I was like, what does that mean? How could I do that? You know, like, how can I? That's not, you know, how do I connect to that? So who am I is a question I've been trying to answer for such a long time. And it's very much, this is a part of who I am, is this very spiritual side of me, to share that, you know, I've always wanted to be a healer, right? So
since when?
Well, so when I think there's probably an earlier time than this, but the things to start with that's obvious is my journey, you know, wanting to study medicine and become a doctor. You know, when I was around 16, 17, 18, I was doing my A-levels in college, and I was trying to decide what I wanted to study at university. And I was, well, even before that, I suppose, when I was doing my GCSEs and I had to choose my A-levels, I chose maths, biology and chemistry, because those were the things that you needed to choose to do medicine. So, you know, from around the age of like 15, I would say, you know, I wanted to become a doctor and become a healer. So become a doctor specifically, I guess, at that time, that was my path. That was like, okay, I want to go and do that. And I did an experience where I actually went to Nottingham and did this workshop to learn about what it means to become a doctor. I went and did some work experience as well, where I was in a hospital for like 2 weeks in going to different departments. I was with a cardiac department, learning about, heart problems. I actually went to a neuroscience department where I actually stood and watched a brain surgery.
Wow.
Like I've actually seen somebody's brain with my own eyes. That's insane to me. And so I went to A&E as well, and I experienced what it was like to be in the A&E doctor, and I was helping to get someone's blood. Basically, I didn't actually do anything medical, but I just held their arm so they squeeze it a little bit to do that. So yeah, like I had these experiences that were like, I want to help people.
Yeah.
And so then I applied to study medicine, and when I got rejected from the universities, I was like really down about it. And then I was like, what do I actually want? Like, maybe I could go and become a pharmacist and become a hospital pharmacist. So it really got me to go back to like, why did I want to be a doctor? And, you're going to laugh at this. So have you ever seen the TV show Scrubs?
Yeah.
So I watched too much Scrubs. And I was really like, that's really cool.
How much is too much?
Over and over again. So much that I convinced
How many seasons is there?
It's like 8 seasons. There's so much that I convinced myself that I wanted that from my life.
Right.
So I, was like, that's what I want in my life. I want that, environment, and I want to go and do that. But there's no such thing as coincidences. Like that spoke to me for a reason.
Mm-hmm.
So when I went back and just sort of figured out what is it that I was connecting to about that, I said, okay, sure, I wanted to be a doctor, but I don't want to go and be in a hospital if I'm not a doctor. Like, I really thought about it, and I was like, do I want to follow the path of studying something else at university? Like a lot of people, if they don't go into medicine, they'll go and study biochemical, something, biochem or something along those lines, biomed, I think it is, and then they do that for a year, and then they switch, transition to medicine, or essentially they go through the process again to apply to be a doctor. And it was like such a long journey. I was like, this is already like 7 to 10 years before you qualify as a doctor, and I'm going to add like a year or two onto that journey. I might not even qualify again, whatever. I might get rejected again. I was like, I don't want to go through that. Yeah. And more importantly, I said, I don't want to be part of the current medical system. Even 10 years ago when I was, or more than 20 years ago, when I was deciding what I wanted to do, it was like, this system is broken. Like, I want a life. I want freedom, and that was so important to me that I was like, I want to be able to travel, for example. So I decided not to pursue that, and on results day, basically, was like the week before results day, I was like researching, what I could study at university, and ultimately I was inspired by watching Iron Man. I really wanted to be like Tony Stark. I wanted to be Iron Man, so I chose computer science. And I figured that, the world was becoming more digital, more technological. If I understood that world, the technology world, then I would have the sort of power to go and do whatever I wanted. Ultimately, it would enable me, it would empower me to go into anything else, because everything would become more digital naturally, the way the world was going. So that's kind of what led me down that path.
How did you know that that's the way it was going?
The world had already started becoming more technological. We grew up, there's a few years difference between us, but roughly we both grew up kind of with the dawn of the internet as such. Computers were starting to become a thing. The internet was starting to become a thing as we grew up. I remember growing up with dial-up, for example. Do you remember that? Hearing the
screechy
tones.
Noise.
Yeah, exactly. So listening to a lot of, I've often used Shiv as sort of my or not used, but Shiv's been my mentor, and
Who's Shiv?
Shiv is my brother. He's the owner of Lifestyle Property People. He's a very studious guy. He's very successful in his life, and he's taught me a lot, and I've been very lucky to have him as a brother. And has been critical in helping to kind of ask me the right questions and give me certain perspectives at times in my life where I've not been a bit lost, or maybe even been going down a path, that he could see that wasn't serving me, for example. So I guess to kind of bring this back, who am I? Where is this all going? It led me to study computer science, and then he was pushing me a lot whilst I was at university to go traveling, because he'd been traveling to South America for 6 months, and that had been very transformational for him. So he was like, you need to, you got to go, like, it's amazing, like, and I was really scared. I was like, but like, I don't want to go by myself. Like, I was planning to go with a friend.
Why was he pushing you to do that?
Because he just thought it would be really transformational for me. It's like, it's been such an experience for him.
Right.
I think he thought that I would really benefit from going out into the world and like seeing what the world is like outside of the bubble. I think that's the thing. You grow up and you live in your town. Even though I live in London, which is not a town, it's a huge city.
Yeah.
But it's still its own bubble, right?
Yeah.
And it's like when you break out of that bubble and you go to see the world, even if you go to one place particularly, you still at least you expand that bubble.
Yeah.
My bubble is no longer just London. My bubble is the world. I've got friends all over the world.
Yeah.
And I regularly interact with them. And although I don't really like watch the news and I don't keep up with those sorts of things, I feel like I know, I feel like my bubble has expanded just from knowing these people. So yeah, he was really like pushing me and I was resistant to it. And eventually I did follow through and I was like, okay. I broke up with my ex-girlfriend. That was the push. I was like, okay, I need to get out of here. I need to go and find myself. Everyone talks about I need to go find myself. That was obviously where I started that journey. So I went to East Europe. I did like a bus coach tour around Slovakia, Slovenia, Prague for a week, and then I stayed and went to visit where my friend Camilla lives in Poland, and that was really cool to see that town. And I went to Budapest and really had a cool experience. I went to the Ziget festival on an island on the river, so that was super cool. So it was like an amazing experience, really like opened my world. I met some incredible people, some of who I still talk to. So that really opened up my eyes to be like, wow, there's so much more to the world than my bubble. And then I did my final year of university. And I was like trying to figure out what I want to do next. I applied for a job and I got the job working at Sky as a software engineer. And it was like, okay, I'm about to accept this job. And something in me was like, no, like this isn't the right thing. And again, Shiv had been talking to me about going traveling, instead of getting a job straight away. And that's what I decided to do.
Yeah.
So I went traveling for a year and a half straight out of university instead of getting a job. I was very privileged to be in that position where I could. Most people can't. Most people can't afford it. And the only reason I could was because of the support that I had from my family. So that was an amazing experience. Like, I'm not going to go into loads of detail about it, but the key thing that really did for me was 4 years of studying computer science at university. I was in this mindset of like, okay, I'm going to go and be a programmer, a software engineer. This is how my life is going to be, blah, blah, blah. And I got to this one moment where I was sitting, looking out this valley, and I was feeling sorry for myself. I'd actually injured my knee. And I was like looking out into the valley and I was like, what do I have to feel sorry about? Like, I'm on the other side of the world. Like, I have created this situation in which I am now in Australia. I've been traveling for a year. I'm still going for a few months. As far as I knew, there was no end in sight. I'd met all of these amazing people. I had these amazing experiences. Like what the hell am I complaining about? Like, if it all was to end now, like, not, if my life was to end, but if the travel was to stop and I had to go back home, I'd be like, it was a hell of a journey, you know, like, so, because that was a big concern at the time. Was like, oh, I'm going to have to stop because I'm running out of money and I can't work and my leg and blah, blah, blah. But the big thing that led to me, so I created this amazing experience that I currently have, which also led to, well, if I can do this, I can do anything. Yeah. I don't need to just be a programmer. I can go and do anything I want with my life. And that was incredible. That was such a massive eye-opening experience, and I was so energized. I was so like, like, wow, like it's a whole new world, And so I decided to come back to the UK after speaking to Shiv. He was like, that's great that you've had this realization. So what are you going to do? Maybe it's time to come back and do something with that energy kind of thing. So I came back and I was like then trying to figure out what do I want to do next, and that for 2018, a lot of the year I was like just trying to figure out what I actually want from my life, and I was like, I went to a bunch of courses. I did, like a intro to NLP, intro to coaching, like an intro to a lot of courses. I'd started basically working with elderly people to help with their technology, teaching technology. And then I started to help more than just older people, like just people in general that needed some technology help. And because I didn't want to give up the freedom, right? So I didn't want to just go and get a job, because I was like, at the worst case scenario, I was able to go get a job working for Sky as a software engineer. So if I need to get a job, I can go and apply for that again, because I knew that I got that in the past.
Yeah.
So let me just try this for now and see where it takes me. And so then I went and did that, and I was basically struggling with sales, right? I was like really like, I couldn't sell, I was really struggling with money because of struggling with sales. And I was speaking to Shiv, and I was like, Shiv, like, you're so good at sales, help teach me, like, how do I do this? And basically he had at some point been speaking to Depesh. So Depesh, we're going to get you on the podcast, and Shiv as well. So he basically introduced me to Depesh, and he was like, speak to Depesh, he'll help you. And then I spoke to Depesh, and he basically sold me on coming to Super Genius. Like, I didn't even attend the 3-day event. He just sold me on like the ticket for like the 5-day,
the full one, yeah,
the life, so Super Genius life. So, he was like, trust me, like, this is gonna change your life, kind of thing.
Was he right?
Yeah, 100%. Obviously, like, that's where you and I met.
Yeah.
Rishi obviously met you first, I believe, and then introduced me to you as his friend, and then you and I started
Who's
talking.
Rishi?
Rishi, my other brother, works at DK Property, and very, very wise himself as well. So, I signed up to do the full Super Genius mastery package, as did you, and the rest is history. There's so much more from that point onwards, but I really just wanted to say, where did I even get to spirituality, and that, how did I get to this point where I'm interested in things like quantum healing and things like spiritual healing and this kind of stuff. So it all started with Super Genius, but what got me to Super Genius? Yeah. And that's a big part of who I am.
What is Super Genius?
So Super Genius is, created by Ryan Pinnock. We went to his workshops where he taught us about super consciousness, and we learned about these sort of layers of your identity. So you have your ego, you have your, what you're conscious of, which is your thoughts and your feelings, but then there are parts of you that you're unconscious to. You have your assumptions and your beliefs about the world. You have your dark side and your wound. If you've seen the movie Inside Out 2, that's a really great kind of explanation of all of this. And honestly, I'm so amazed that became a movie that talks about this stuff that we learned in these workshops. That's incredible. So and as well as that, that's the part of your brain that's designed to keep you safe, but there's a part of you that's your soul, your spirit, your inner guidance, Steve Jobs calls the whisper. So Super Genius is where he taught
Steven Spielberg.
Yes. So he teaches you to turn down the volume of your ego and turn up the volume of your whisper, your heart. And you tap into your vision, into your genius, your unique genius, to be truly yourself. It's self-actualization, really. But one thing I want to touch on as well in this question of who are you is, even before all of that, like while I was growing up, I grew up Jain, which is, it's not actually the same as what a Hindu, which is a lot of what my friends are. Jainism, I always describe it as like a cross between Hinduism and Buddhism, that like we have all of the festivals of Hinduism, but we have all of the spirituality of Buddhism. Like its main principle is ahimsa, which means non-violence. and a lot of things come from that. There's these themes of reincarnation and, you know, living. It's very spiritual. So I was very spiritual from a young age from these teachings that I had.
Right.
But as well as that, I was also so interested in science. Like I remember being in high school and being in physics class. Like our physics teacher in high school was an asshole. Like
Right.
you know, honestly. But I remember him saying once was like, "You'll all thank me one day."
Right.
And this is me thanking him and saying like, yeah, like I thank you.
Thank him.
Yeah, like I love physics. I love quantum
What's
physics.
his name?
I don't remember, honestly, but it started with a K. But yeah, I love quantum physics. I love learning about the universe and space and stars and consciousness and these big questions. You know, it's so interesting because when you get to that level of quantum physics, it starts to interact with philosophy. Why are we here? Why is the universe, like, for example, the speed of light is, you know, everyone knows c, the speed of light is, you know, a certain speed. Why is it that speed, you know? And that question of why is that constant, that value, well, that comes back to why are we here? And these big questions that we like to ask in philosophy as well. So at some point, science and philosophy connect and interact. And this is where Quantum Buddha comes in. It's like the science and the spirituality, the philosophy.
Yeah, just touching on a few of those points if I can.
Yeah, absolutely.
The super consciousness, like you explained what super genius was, but what I wanted to know was this all completely new to you when you learned about the things about super genius, when you learned about the information in that course and this introduction to super consciousness? And how would you describe in layman's terms what super consciousness is?
First question, it was new to me. Like, I guess the way that he taught it was new to me. But if I really think about it, those kind of concepts were not new to me, you know. So I was part of a community when I was growing up, Sunday school, as I've told you, Ben, Shishigunj, and the word means children's garden. It's a community where children grow up through being part of that community. You learn about your culture, you learn about language, but you also learn about, you know, a lot of life lessons. So when you're about 12 or 13 and you get given a book or some books as a present for handling certain level of responsibility, and I remember I got a couple of books. One of them I think was Who Moved My Cheese. One of them was Jonathan Livingston Seagull, which is my favorite book I've ever read, and one of them was Celestine Prophecy. And Celestine Prophecy talked about coincidences.
What's it called?
Celestine Prophecy.
Right.
And it talks about coincidences, it talks about synchronicity, it talks about manifestation, it talks about like energy, like, you know, it's got this whole part of it that it's like the energy of interacting with plants and, you know, these physical beings that we didn't previously think were conscious, for example. So, you know, and Jonathan Livingston Seagull is essentially about evolution.
Right.
And it's about like ego death and rising to the new level,
right.
And, you know, that kind
But you just didn't know those terms back
I didn't know
then.
any of those terms
Yeah,
back
yeah.
then, yeah. So I guess that the terms were new to me, but the concepts were not. And that's what I mean about, you know, like it's this, I've been on this journey my whole life,
Yeah.
you know?
That's what I realise as well with the same stuff, because I think when you hear Ryan talk about these concepts, it sort of connects dots.
Yeah.
Like Ryan has went through the process of learning all this and put it in a very simple way.
Yeah.
And by doing that, it's helped us in our way of learning as well. Like someone speaking, someone
Yes.
teaching, interacting with a group.
Hence why we do podcasts.
Yeah. So being able to learn through sharing and, you know, interacting, that's the way that we learn really well. So
Yeah.
it just made the penny drop, because you and I both were big readers before we went to that as well. So one of the ways I described super genius and super consciousness was the 80-20 of personal development. So it's that 20% that's most effective in all the personal development I've done.
Yeah.
And that's why, for me personally, but I think for you as well, it became our topic.
Yeah.
Like super conscious, something within that topic of super consciousness, beyond Super Genius, like we've went into other communities as well, we continued being students of that and of ourselves.
Yeah.
And we've done that together, that journey together, which has been great, like the last 6 years.
Yeah, about 2018, so 6 years.
6 years. So Virr and I did Super Genius together in a workshop where we basically spent a month together in workshops.
Pretty much, yeah.
Like a whole month, full day workshops.
And
like,
these are pretty intense workshops.
Yeah,
like
yeah.
You're diving
very
really
vulnerable
deep,
workshops.
being very vulnerable, diving deep into your ego, but rising to new heights with your genius.
Yeah.
So, I think that's why we form such a strong bond.
Yeah, exactly.
Is because it's such an intense environment.
Exactly.
And, people bond over, shared hardships.
Yeah.
And also shared victory as well.
Yeah, we spent that time together, and that's how we came out the other side as friends, but also wanting to continue being students of this.
Yeah.
And we just set a structure and we stuck to it.
Yeah.
And I think I got the idea from Ryan. He had a partner that he used to work on this stuff directly with. So
I think he suggested it actually. He suggested that you get an accountability buddy to keep you learning. And actually, this just felt relevant to bring up is I actually went to Tony Robbins earlier that year as well with my whole family, like my parents, my brothers, my uncle, but all, like my mum's brothers as well. So like it's crazy like that we went to that like that year, man. That was a transformational year for me. I mean, I'm sure.
And you were on like the ultimate diet that year as well.
Yeah, exactly. Like I lost so much weight. I lost like 40 kilograms in a year.
Yeah.
Which was insane.
I remember how strict you were at the workshops.
Yeah, exactly.
I met you. Yeah.
Super strict. So yeah, it was really quite an intense experience to go to Tony Robbins. And it's interesting because I'm just thinking about like, was I familiar with these things? I guess, yeah, like even at Tony Robbins, I'd learned a lot about what Ryan was teaching in different ways as well. Tony Robbins does a good job of making the things that Ryan talks about a bit more relatable to, maybe people who are not so deep into it. It's very energized, very energetic, I guess. It's very
jumping about.
Jumping about. Yeah, you like every a couple of hours you like stand up and clap and like basically the whole like couple of days that you're doing it, you're building up to go and walk on hot coals.
Right.
And walk on fire walk. That's what people call it. And he's like building you up, like mind over matter. Teaching you about like you can do anything if you believe it. If you put your mind to it, like all of these things that are relevant to what we've learned from Super Genius as well.
Yeah.
But just maybe not using the jargon or the terminology that Ryan taught us.
Right. Right.
So that was part of the journey as well.
And like you talked about philosophy as well. And I talked about philosophy in our podcast we did before this podcast. And I talked about stoicism and moral philosophy. Yeah. But there's actually like multiple aspects to philosophy. There's moral philosophy, there's aesthetic philosophy, I think there's political philosophy and many other aspects of philosophy. I think there's 4 categories. Can you remember the other 2?
No.
But philosophy is a huge passion of mine as well. I read books on philosophy and really got into the understanding why people read about philosophy. And reading philosophy itself is actually therapeutic in itself. It gets you into that flow state. But I think where we both really relate on things and what transfers into the super consciousness and super genius is the moral philosophies as well.
Yeah.
I don't think it's the same, but I think that's where we relate on things, the moral, the ethics, like the disciplines, like the Roman standards that we came up with as well. So like that's one of the things that's part of you and part of me and where we connect. But I think when we combine that with super consciousness, moral philosophy, like you and I have been developing, like, Ryan started this with us in this environment, but we went off and did something with it.
Yeah.
Like no one suggested we went and gone and done what we've done.
Yeah.
But what we've been doing is essentially coming up with our own theories and standards and like our own moral philosophy and
Yeah.
lessons. Like we're having our own experiences, and we're writing a book this weekend and things. So like we're actually developing something ourselves. And I think we're still on that journey, but this is us doing it officially. Like,
Yeah.
really, this is this like states something that,
Yeah.
you know, our conscious conversations that we had in private together over the phone has become something more where you've started a podcast.
We're sharing it to the world.
Yeah. And it's become much more than a conversation between friends. But I think like we were a mixture of friends and students and like teaching each other,
this
facilitating each other.
This conscious conversations started with us saying, let's get together once a week and practice these processes that we've learned from Ryan.
Yeah.
You know, we'll actually just practice doing the meditations, practice going through the processes, and reach the level of mastery that he reached. Like, I remember seeing Ryan talking on stage that first time and realizing how he lived his life in this very conscious way.
Yeah.
And the way that he, you know, dealt with his emotions that came up, the way that he made decisions in a conscious way.
Through all these methodologies that he was teaching us,
And I was like, I want to live like that.
Yeah.
Like, I want my life to become like that. Not like Ryan's life specifically, becoming a speaker on stage, teaching stuff and having, you know, the clothes or the cars or whatever that he's got that make him who he is. But, you know, I want to reach that level of mastery.
Yeah.
And you know, I talk a lot about self-mastery. I think you call it personal development, I call it self-mastery.
Yeah, it's the same thing.
But it's the same thing, really. It's, you know, I want to live like that. And not be controlled by my urges, my emotions, my unconscious. That's what Ryan calls it, your unconscious mind. So, yeah, that was really part of the drive to say, like, why have we shown up for 6 years every single week to practice this?
Yeah.
It was about, you know, getting to that level of mastery. And now...
Yeah, and I'm on the same page as that as well.
Exactly.
I was inspired by Ryan, but I was also inspired by Jim Rohn on that. Like Jim Rohn, when I heard him speak for the first time, just his deep knowledge on this topic that he was talking about, or the general topics that he would talk about, you could see that mastery. So I can totally relate to that as well.
Yeah, exactly. And, you know, just realizing that, like, okay, now we're starting to share that with the world as well.
Yeah.
It's really interesting. Like, I had a conversation with Luke Scott, and you know, he's someone else that we've both learned from, and he's Luke Scott, the creative curate, quantum regression integration therapy, and it was actually talking about like how much can one person do. You know, like I can't remember exactly where this conversation started, but it was like, how much can I do by myself, kind of thing.
Yeah.
And he gave me the perspective of like, he is one person.
Yeah.
And he's impacted me.
Yeah.
And I've impacted someone else. Like, you know, there is always that trickle down effect. Like
the butterfly effect.
The butterfly, yeah. Like, one person actually has so much more impact than they think they do. It's just a lot more hidden than you might, you know, it's actually, Manmeet talks about this as well. Like, John DeMartini's, a big part of what he teaches is like, the virtual or the hidden or the unseen connections that you maybe not aware of. Like, if you're he talks a lot about support and challenge, right? So if you're feeling really challenged at a particular moment, for example, who is supporting you,
right? You
know, and that person might not be right there with you, but it could be that somebody on the other side of the world is you know, thinking of you, having really positive thoughts about you. It could be that somebody is actually sending you a message right at the same moment where that person is, you know, challenging what you're saying, for example. So it's like that virtual, that hidden, that unseen, so when we talk about reality, we believe that there's multiple layers to reality, multiple planes of existence. There's the physical, the mental, the emotional, and the spiritual. And so, you know, the physical is just what we can see and feel and what we experience with our five senses. But, you know, your thoughts exist. Like you're able to observe them and let go of them, whatever. Like they'll pop in and out of existence. Talking about quantum physics, they pop in and out of existence, similar to how certain particles
For
can
real,
pop in and
yeah.
out of existence. Exactly, for real. Your emotions, again, like you feel your emotions. You know, you can hold on to trapped emotions for a very long time. I talk sometimes about emotional release therapy when I'm trying to explain what I do, sometimes rather than talking about quantum healing, because somebody might not relate to quantum healing, but emotional release therapy might be easier to understand. So, you know, you've got that emotional layer as well, where you are holding on to a particular emotion, or you're not processing it, or you've trapped it for years since you were a child, whatever. And then you've got that spiritual layer, and that spiritual level is like, you know, letting go of the physical body, you know, letting go of the mind, letting go of the identity of who you are, who you have defined yourself to be. If you imagine an onion, if you peel back all of the layers of the onion, what's left inside, it's your soul, it's who you really are
Yeah.
underneath all of that. And, you know, not everyone believes in the soul and spirit, but, you know, you and I both do. And I think that it doesn't matter if you don't believe in it. What matters is you find some way of connecting to your true inner guidance. You know, you have all the answers yourself.
Yeah.
Whether you think that comes from your soul or if you believe that just comes from, you know, your mind, it doesn't matter where you describe it or you believe it. What matters is that you look to yourself for that guidance, for that wisdom, for that knowledge, and even sometimes for that fulfillment and that validation as well.
Yep.
Whereas often we, you know, try and explore external fulfillment, external validation.
In the physical.
Yes, external wisdom and knowledge. Like, you know, you've talked sometimes about the fact that you've like become really obsessed with reading books
Yeah.
at certain points, and you've gone like too far into it, so far that you're like, you know, like not listening to your inner wisdom, and you have to like bring yourself back a little bit and go like, okay, I've like that was the wisdom from that book. What actually is,
What about
what's true for me?
What does my soul say
Yeah.
about that? What does my wisdom say about that?
Yeah.
And like you say, it's just trusting yourself, trusting your intuition.
Yes.
And yeah, I got far away from trusting my intuition. I trusted too many authorities.
Yes.
And today we're talking about ChatGPT, like making sure we don't use ChatGPT as our guiding spirit.
Yeah.
We need to continue to tap into ourselves to trust our intuition. That's the way I would put it.
Yeah.
What you're saying is that's what I had to learn. I had to stop reading to take any action. Like I had to start trusting that things will work out if I go and take action now without anything, you know, without my watch, without my notepad, without my books.
Yeah.
Go and just take action from my own head.
And you talk, you know, so you had that question of like, what is superconsciousness? Ultimately, it's just connecting to your intuition. And connecting to your intuition allows you to explore possibilities. It allows you to explore creativity. Like, even if you don't believe in the spiritual side of that, of like, I believe when you connect to your intuition, you're connecting to the universe, you're connecting to universal intelligence, you're connecting to all of time and space, you know, those kind of ideas. But if you don't resonate with that, if that's not, you know, true for you, then just even the idea of possibility, the idea of what if, you know, Dan Hill talks about solutions, not problems. So it's like, if you have a problem, don't think like, oh, you know, how can we solve this? It's like, what if we solve this? What would that look like?
Yeah.
And just going into that creativity, going into that possibility space, not being so logical. And actually, I really love the way that this guy that I've been reading recently, the guy from Ogilvy, his name will come back to me, but he wrote this book called Alchemy, and he talks about logic and psychologic.
Yeah.
And the psychologic part of it is that creativity, like, you know, that sort of logic. Not all problems can be solved with logic. Logic is a tool. Creativity is a tool. You know, you've got to understand when to use the right tool at the right time.
Yeah.
And sometimes, like, for example, human behavior doesn't make sense. This is why marketing can be so exciting, because it's like, oh, like, why is the market responding in this way?
Yeah.
You know, logically, it doesn't make any sense that this is happening. Let's get creative about understanding that solution to that problem.
Yeah. And what is your purpose?
My purpose is kindness. It's like I on my website for Quantum Buddha, I say elevate your consciousness, and I talk about like my mission is to raise the consciousness of the world. That's one of my visions. And that's a vision, that's a mission, but that's not the purpose. Like, why do we want to elevate consciousness? Kindness. Like, it's just like to make the world a kinder place. Coming back to me wanting to be a healer, even just a step back from being a healer, it's like I just want to help.
Yeah.
I just want to help. I see people in pain. I see people struggling. I see, things happening that maybe sometimes I felt helpless in my life, and I just want to help. And it just really comes from that. I've had that thought over and over and over again. I just want to help.
Yeah.
So it's like I wish I could make the world. Not I wish. My purpose is to make the world a kinder, more compassionate place, and the way to do that is to help people become more conscious of their own ego, of their own emotions, and help them to do at least two things here. It's number one is in that moment when you experience that emotion, pause and just take that moment to like actually make a conscious decision. You might be feeling really angry and you might want to just like shout at somebody else or kick someone or whatever it might be, but what if you could have that pause to just say, what would I love to do here? Like Shiv, I've said this before, Shiv talks about this idea of the fear button or the love button, and that reaction of anger, or that reaction is the fear. When I say the fear, it's the ego, it's the brain trying to keep you safe, and that's not a bad thing. Like your brain, your ego is a tool. This is exactly something that my therapist said to me yesterday. Your ego is a tool created by your soul to allow you to have a human experience. Here's another version of that I saw in a video. It's like your ego is not the enemy. I sent you this video. Your ego is not the enemy.
That, yeah.
It's like your ego, like when you go to the gym, you're pushing weights, you're lifting weights, you're pushing against that force of that weight. So
tension.
You might think, that tension,
resistance.
That resistance allows you to grow. So it's like your ego helps you to experience that resistance, so that you can push through the resistance and you can grow.
Yeah.
So like your brain is designed to keep you safe, and it's doing a great job. Like it's doing exactly what it's designed to do. Something I talk to people about is like you have your nervous system, which is automatic. It's like if you pick up a hot cup of coffee and it's too hot for your hand, like if you're young, obviously you just drop it, like you don't have any control. Your body just automatically just drops it, lets go, because you just don't have the capacity to handle that. Your instinct is there to keep you safe. That's physically, but emotionally as well. You have an emotional nervous system, emotional automatic response, which is that's designed to do the exact same thing. It's like emotionally to keep you safe. So, just in the same way, you can train your hand to hold that coffee for a few extra seconds, to put it down onto a counter, and then move your hand away and look after your hand and maybe run it under some cold water or whatever you need to do. But you can train your brain to just hold on, have the capacity to pause in that moment where you're going to drop it, pause and decide, I'm going to put it down before I go and look after my hand, so that you don't just drop the coffee all over the floor, for example. So you can do the same thing with your emotions as well. You can learn to pause and hold that anger for a few moments to try and decide how you actually want to deal with that, how you want to that energy to flow, because you might just still say, like, I'm going to shout at this person, like that's what I want to do right now, and that's okay. Like if you've made that decision consciously, that's okay.
But you wouldn't ever make that decision.
You might
consciously.
This is something that I want to be clear on. It's okay to shout at people. It's okay to get angry. It's okay to experience the emotions that you experience, because They are your experience, they are your emotions, and everything that you experience is valid because you're human, you're alive. What is not maybe okay in that situation is your reaction. It's like, it's not the way that you experience it, it's the way that
Uncontrolled.
yeah, it's if your reaction is uncontrolled and you end up hurting someone else because of it, like, that's on you. You know, most people don't accept that the responsibility for letting out their anger. You know, be like, oh, I'm really sorry that I shouted you. I was really stressed. You know, I was whatever. But it's like, okay, but like, you still shouted at me. So it's like, okay, like, really taking a step back and be like, yeah, like, why did I respond in that way? So this goes on to the second thing. The first thing is being able to have that pause and decide consciously how you want to react. Maybe I'm going to say, okay, actually, I literally had this on a phone call with my friend. He was talking to me, and some things that he was saying were quite irritating, and it built up and it built up. And I was like, bro, I know that you're trying to give me criticism here, but this is actually pissing me off. Like, but I know that it's coming from love. So can I just take a few moments to step outside and just take a few deep breaths in the cold, because that will allow me to let go of it and actually listen to what you have to say. So I was able to take that pause and express to him how I was feeling, but without taking it out on him. I expressed it to him that, like, I'm frustrated.
Yeah, but going back to what I'm saying is that I think shouting,
Yeah.
does it have a purpose?
So it can. So the thing is, on the other hand, yes, you're shouting, but maybe that person needs that shouting. Maybe they need to be, not from your perspective, but from their perspective, maybe that shouting makes them take that thing more seriously than they otherwise would have. So this is where John DeMartini comes in. And he talks about balance, and he talks about there's perfection in every moment. So he says, maybe I feel really bad about shouting at that person, and actually I'm judging myself, I'm putting myself down for shouting at that person. But when you put yourself down for something, or you put yourself up for something, or conversely, you put someone else on the pedestal or the pit for doing something, you know, that constant judgment, you keep going up and down with the emotions. You'd be like, oh, I suck, and they're great, and I suck, and I feel amazing, and you keep going up and down. But actually, like, that's such a roller coaster way to live, right?
Yeah.
Like, you want to bring yourself back down when you're too high, and you bring yourself up so that you're living a more balanced sort of peace, life of like love, and coming back to that fear or love button. You're learning how to push that love button.
It's like rising above.
So it's rising above. So in those moments where you maybe shouted at somebody, maybe they needed it. Maybe and you don't know that from just being like, oh, logically that person needed it. You need to go into your intuition and ask yourself, how did that serve that person in that moment? So what I'm saying is, in those moments where you're judging yourself for shouting at somebody, and maybe you're ashamed of the fact that you used to shout at people, and you're trying to learn how to not do that anymore. Part of it is actually accepting that responsibility, that you used to do it, but also balancing out the judgment. So you're just looking at the negative, like, oh, it was so bad that I shouted at that person. But what about, there's always an equal and opposite positive. What about the positives of you shouting at that person and being like, yeah, actually, that meant that they took what I had to say really seriously, and they actually never made that mistake again.
The other part to my question, like, I think where I was really going with it is, would you really shout if you were really present? Like, if you really got under control of your emotions, do we actually shout when we're no longer angry? That's kind of where I was going with that.
Yeah, but I guess that's what I'm trying to say, is like, if I feel like that is relevant to achieve a goal, like for example, if you're in the army and you're trying to keep your troops disciplined, you might need to shout at them to keep them listening if they're frightened, for example. That shouting might
so
keep
that
their focus.
Energy of anger or frustration can be like useful that reason.
It's a tool, and that's what I'm trying to say, is that it's about understanding where that's relevant, where to use it.
It's like alchemy, like using a negative, like a potential negative for a positive.
Exactly. So that's one part of it, is learning how to handle it in the moment.
Yeah.
But another part of it that I want to talk about is also going back to, why did I get angry in the first place?
Right.
What triggered that anger?
Yeah.
You know, going back to, again, the movie Inside Out 2, going back to that core belief that maybe is linked to that emotion. And going like, you know, maybe there's a belief that, you know, people don't listen to me unless I'm shouting, for example.
Yeah.
So with that, you might have that belief in you that makes you shout at people.
You grew up in a childhood home that had 10 children and you had to shout above them all.
Exactly.
To get
Like,
noticed.
where did that come from?
Yeah.
That in the movie, you know, that core memory goes into the pool of unconscious or whatever, and then turns into a core belief. So you're right. Like, it comes from a particular experience that you had, and that you know.
That's why I'm questioning, like, do we, like, I'm just exploring this with you, but do we actually need to shout, or is that like a trigger? Is that a piece of anger that, when I look at someone shouting, or when I shout, I see it. I don't judge it, but I see it as an unconscious behavior.
I have a question that I think will help you to see my perspective. How do you communicate when you're playing football?
Scream and shout.
There you go. So in that situation, you are shouting at your team because there's a lot of noise and they're further away. So that's what I'm trying to show you, that maybe there are situations in which shouting is needed to communicate.
Yeah, and that kind of shouting is very conscious. Not completely, because you're in flow, but it's not the same type of shouting that we're talking about as well, though.
So that you know, I'm making it very clear that, like, when I say in that moment of anger you make the decision to shout, it's a different type of shouting. When you make the unconscious shouting, you're letting out the anger on the person.
Yeah.
When you consciously shout at somebody, maybe, for example, you don't shout at them so much. Like, you might shout at them once to get the point across, but then if you're angry, you might just keep going and have a hot rant at them.
Yeah.
Whereas if you're conscious, you might just...
It's controlled,
You might be more controlled,
contained,
exactly. Yeah, so that's what I mean. It's like, you know, these forms of communication exist for a purpose. Like, everything is good and bad.
Yeah.
So it's just the perspective that you had in how you judged it.
Yeah.
If it's bad.
Yeah.
There's always a perfection in the imperfection.
Mm.
So just coming back to that, sorry, the second part of, like, so, because this all came from the question of what is my purpose?
Yeah.
So it's breaking down the two aspects of helping people learn how to deal with that in the moment, the emotion, so that they're living more balanced rather than being so up and down in the roller coaster. And number two is helping them to actually release these limiting beliefs that, like, I need to shout to be heard.
Yeah.
It's like, no, actually, like, maybe that's not as effective form of communication as your ego believes it is.
Yeah.
You know, and actually you can let go of that and say, okay, like, what would I replace that with? Maybe it's about learning to be more present when you're communicating. So if I'm looking into your eyes when I'm talking to you and you're keeping that eye contact with me, you're present with me, you're more engaged, maybe you're more likely to take that in. So maybe instead of I need to shout at people, maybe it's I need to have eye contact with people.
Yeah.
And that might be what replaces it, you know, the new belief of how to communicate effectively.
So, in short, what is your purpose?
Kindness.
In a sentence, what is your purpose?
Is to make the world a kinder place by teaching people how to be more conscious, control their regulate their emotions, and to reprogram their unconscious.
Yeah. Okay.
So let's do a meditation.
Cool.
Would you be happy to guide that?
Yeah.
Perfect.
Yeah. Okay, you ready?
Ready when you are.
Sit upright if you can with that microphone in front of you. So sit upright and take some deep breaths. And take a few more deep breaths. Imagine that you were on a boat in the sea with a row to move your boat around, and just imagine it's nice and calm in the sea, in the ocean, and you're rowing into the sea. It's foggy, you don't really know where you're going, and you're just sailing smoothly along, nice and slowly, calm waters. You don't really need to row the boat that often. It's just flowing along and you're just enjoying yourself. There's no view because you're covered in fog from all viewpoints right around. But it's just you're here, present in this boat, in this present moment. And just sit with that almost nothingness out in the sea, out in the fog, just you, and feel that presence. And feel your body. Connect to your body now, like focus on your body. Listen to how it feels, feel how it feels. Almost look at how your body feels. Look at your body from this higher perspective. And just let your presence stay with you. Now focus on your heart, where your heart's centered in your body. And imagine that just glowing up brighter and brighter. And feel the stillness in your heart. And just let the colour that you can see right now just cover your whole body until there's really nothing left, until there's light, pure light. And now think about something that you're grateful for from this perspective. Connect to that. What are you grateful for? Ask yourself, what am I grateful for? And if you can't think of anything that you're grateful for, then just simply be grateful for this moment of being present. Because right now, you're in a healing state. You're safe. Your nervous system is relaxed. You're currently healing right now and living through love. You've even left your body and you've moved into the spiritual dimension. And in this space, anything's possible. There's infinite possibilities. And this is just a reminder that you can access this place through guided meditation or through someone's voice, through your own inner guidance to get to this place at any point during any time of the day. You're always free to connect and come here. Take one last deep breath and breathe it all out. And then open your eyes when you're ready and come back to your body.
Can I share what I was grateful for?
Yeah.
So it's funny because I always end the podcast anyway by saying, like, what are you grateful for? So what I'm grateful for, and when we did the meditation, it was like a vastness
Yeah.
of like the unknown,
Yeah.
of being alive. Like there's a whole world to explore.
Yeah. That's where I got as well.
There's like not just like the world physically, but like you could dive into philosophy, into science, into countries, into languages, into stories. Like there's multiple worlds to explore just by being alive. And ultimately was the thing that I was grateful for, was like the adventure that is life.
Yeah.
Like really, I was actually struggling during the meditation there. I was like, first I had so one of my things that I struggle with is catastrophizing.
Right.
So when you brought the attention to my heart, I actually imagined like hands squeezing my heart,
Right.
like till it exploded in a way. And I was like, like having these like negative images that I was struggling with in that moment. I felt all this pressure in my head. And then it was only when you kind of said, that you're like rising out of your body kind of thing,
Yeah.
that I like basically like bowed down to that feeling, and I like surrendered to it, and I let go of the physical.
Yeah.
Essentially, like the key,
And that's the point of meditation, is to leave your body.
That's when I was able to enter this kind of perspective of like just seeing the vastness of the adventure.
Yeah.
And just being really grateful for being alive.
And where did all that come from? Like what I just said, I don't know. Like that's the crazy thing. Like I'm completely that like person on the boat sailing into the unknown. Like literally it's foggy. Like I don't know what I'm going to say next, but I'm guiding you somehow. That's the crazy thing. Like everything we've done today in this podcast studio there's no script.
Yeah.
Like that's how we live now. We live like you wanted to live.
Yeah.
And we're able to do that now because we fully trust our intuition that I can guide you and whoever's listening to this podcast through a guided meditation with no script.
Yeah.
But that's training.
Yeah.
To trust that. It's not that I had to train to learn that script of that meditation.
Yeah.
It doesn't exist. I just created it from scratch through trust in that I'm tapped into my universal inner wisdom and intelligence.
Yeah.
That I'm receiving and presenting and sharing, but it's not fully me. I am tapped into something greater than me that I'm able to share through my mouth and voice.
I have a bookmark, but I'll keep it bookmarked. What are you grateful for? What came up for you in the meditation?
Literally what I said in it.
Okay.
That I was just super grateful for creating that space.
Okay.
In today. I think I really needed it.
Yeah.
After traveling 5 hours, waking up really early, waking up at 3 in.
Yeah.
So a bad night's sleep, a long train journey. I wasn't feeling very well just before this podcast. So,
yeah.
I had to like lift myself up and get in here, but that I felt like I was really healing and like in that state of where you get to in meditation, where I aim to get to when I do a meditation, and I got there. So I was just present to be here, feeling the way I felt.
Yeah.
Being able to give my sort of thinking brain a break and my body a break and just like sit, being present. And I felt that love and I think when you're guiding a meditation, you tend to, what you're saying is how where you're at.
Yeah.
So everything I said is what I'm grateful for.
Okay. That's incredible.
But specifically the space that we created to go there, and then feeling how almost like my body was vibrating and like my like skin felt hot and like just I felt really good. It's hard to articulate.
Yeah.
But I felt amazing, like I'd been reborn and like I was a new body or something.
It's funny you say that. Like you might not have noticed it because you might have had your eyes closed, but if you look back at the video, like I literally did this, like I was like, and then suddenly like reawakened
Yeah,
kind
yeah.
of thing. It's like
That's how you feel every time you come out of proper good meditation as well.
Joe, I think it's Joe Dispenza talks about that. It's like,
Right.
That's if you don't feel like something's changed, something's shifted
Yeah.
when you do a meditation, like you haven't done it properly.
Right. Yeah.
Every time you sit
And
down.
it doesn't always work that way. You don't always go there. So
Yeah.
that's why I was extra grateful for this meditation working well.
And I want to say as well, like I'm really grateful for today. I'm grateful for you coming down to London, us having this experience to record this podcast. Very grateful to Finchley's podcast studio as well.
Yeah.
For this room, this space, this equipment, and just being able to do this podcast in this way that I always envisioned. This really, recording it on professional cameras with professional microphones. It's incredible to really be here doing this.
Yeah. It's surreal.
Yeah.
When we first sat here, it was just like, you said you were nervous.
Yeah.
It was just like, wow, this is real now. But yeah, once you get over that initial anxiety, then you just get in flow, like we're sitting on the phone.
Yeah, absolutely.
And you make it your own. Like, this room's owned by us now.
Can I share my bookmark?
Yeah.
So the thing that came up as well was just kind of related to my story, my journey. How did I get here with Quantum Buddha? And it's something that I wanted to share was, in between when I was 15 and I read those books and going traveling and having that experience, I did a lot of more reading as well. And there was a certain set of books that really, really put me on this journey. It was Paulo Coelho. Have you ever read The Alchemist?
Mm-hmm.
Have you read any of his other books as well? There's The Pilgrimage, there's The Witch of Portobello, there's like a whole host of incredible books. Definitely recommend you go and read them. And I read all of them, basically. And specifically, The Witch of Portobello really stuck with me. It talks about like the moments in the spaces.
Right, yeah.
It's that taking that pause. And then there's also something from, I think it's like the Valkyrie, one of those books. It was talking about like, whenever you find yourself going back, like if you go back home because you forgot something, take a moment to just pause and tap into your intuition and go, like, see, that's the thing. It didn't use the word intuition. He talked about like your angels are guiding you towards something else that, you forgot your water bottle. Well, actually pick up the gloves as well. I don't know.
Yeah.
Something like that.
What we realize is like there's all these different phrases, religions, things that are a lot of them are talking about the same universal thing that we're all connected to.
Something else that I wanted to bring up as well was the Kabbalion. A lot of what Ryan has taught us is, and also what Manmeet Jondi Martini teach as well, comes from the Kabbalion. Like a lot of the universal laws that they talk about comes from the Kabbalion. The law of duality. I'm sure you've heard the phrase "as above, so below." As within, so without. And these sorts of universal laws, these things, Hermetic philosophy has been around for thousands of years. Jainism, these kind of spiritual teachings have been around for thousands of years. So we're not talking about anything new, really.
No,
we're just talking about it in a different way, a new perspective,
It seems new when you've learned it and it's clicked. But it's been around for a long time.
So that book is incredible. It's tough to read, actually.
Kabbalion,
I
think I read it twice. The first time I was like, what have I just read?
It is a tough one.
But I'm now highlighting it, and like, again, Ryan really helped to simplify it, and then he was like, go and read it, and it was like, this is not easy.
Yeah.
It's in like sort of old English as well. It's like quite a tough read, but worth reading it as a whole, and then maybe studying it later. But I think when you've read a bundle of books or like 500 books around similar topics, like that book will make more sense. But like if you read that and it's like your first personal development book, I wouldn't do that.
Yeah, yeah. And then another one I wanted to bring up was the pilgrimage I mentioned. That was like I've read that multiple times. It's a story of a man who goes on of him who goes on a pilgrimage.
Yeah.
It's like I think it's in Spain or something, and it's along this trail, and you get a guide, but it's just a dude. It's like who's been called on to be your guide, and they guide you through this journey, and it's all intuitive, right? Like this guide is just and like I think it's actually a real pilgrimage. Like it's not just a story.
Yeah, I've heard of it. I've heard of pilgrimages
basically
in Spain.
The thing that I really took away from that one was fighting the good fight.
Right.
And I was for so long I was like, what does that mean? And to me is I use the term spiritual warrior that I've kind of try and sometimes use to describe who I would love to be. And it's like fighting the good fight is like fighting against your unconscious kind of.
Right.
In a sense, like not just your unconscious, like the collective unconscious. The sort of unconsciousness of like the world, the systems, to be more conscious in a world that is unconscious, and to be out here creating content like this, talking about these topics, learning about these topics, having these conversations, fighting the good fight is basically not allowing your comfort and your unconscious and your safety to win, but actually deciding I'm going to follow my heart. I'm going to have the courage to go and do what I would love. And, that is the courage, basically.
And that's like where we talked about much earlier on, that 5% project.
Yeah.
And expanding that 5% project so it becomes your life.
Yes.
Like that's the point of the 5% project is it must, and eventually expand, like you become 10%, 20%, it becomes 100%. And that's you. Like for me, like that relates to that, where you're fighting the good fight, because for me, in that 5%, that is what I'm doing. Like I'm sharing all of this stuff that I've been learning, and I'm sharing it with the world, like for free. I don't feel the need to charge for it. I make money from my businesses to provide for me and my family, my inner circle. But that 5% is for the world. But I want to do that more. I want to expand that to give the world more of what I've got. But you have to fill your own cup up first. It's a tricky balance.
I was going to ask, like, what was obvious is, like, what does that look like to you when you say you want to expand that 5%? What does that mean to you?
Yeah.
What does that look like to you?
I think I would definitely be doing a lot more speaking, more of this. I would be organising this. Like we organised this. No one stopped us from doing this. No one asked us to do this.
Yeah, no one told us to do this.
It wasn't an event. Like we made this event, we did it. So we'd be doing more of this.
Yeah.
But I can't just sit and do this all day because this doesn't pay yet.
Yeah.
So that's the point. Like I have businesses, marketing agency, house clearance business, property investing and mentoring and things like that. They pay money and put money into my bank or into my business's banks, and I get a dividend from those businesses, and that pays for me, my family and my lifestyle, and so that we are protected. Because I think in the past I've taken that 5% and made it 100%, not done the work that it needs to pay for the stuff for me and my family, and we've suffered.
Yeah.
So you need to go through the Maslow's hierarchy of needs one step at a time. You can't just jump the steps.
Yeah.
You need to have your foundations, and then once you're nearer the top, you can start giving from that place. So serve from the top, not from the bottom.
Yeah.
Because when you serve from the bottom, your cup's like not even half full, and you're taking stuff out of your cup that's not even half full and giving it to someone when you need it just as much as them, almost, like, or it becomes that way. So I've been there, done that, and now I've realised it's about building my foundations for me. It's about me and my family and my inner circle that I care for thriving. Like, one of my goals is like my wife not to work. She doesn't work anymore. I work less hours she almost doesn't have to work, and she can be at home with my kids. So these are the steps of building my own financial independence, security, freedom, wealth, indestructible wealth. So if a COVID or a thing, I'm probably not allowed to say that on podcasts, but it gets banned, that word. The things that will, look after me and my family and the people, I most care about, that are like my family and my friends. And if I can do that first, then I can build from that after. So right now, the 5% is just the side, like on the side of that, because I'm being selfish. I'm looking after myself, and not completely selfish. I'm looking after my kids and my family, and being a dad, and I want to look after my mum as well. I actually want to help my mum get out of her job, and I want to do like some traveling with my family and see the world. And there's a lot of things that I still want to do personally. Like if I go into this mission 100%, I'll not do any of that. So it's finding a balance where I'm looking after me and looking after the world, because I'll be able to look after the world and like take on a bigger plate progressively when I'm ready, like fully ready to like take it all on. I think it has to be progressively, and fixing those foundations there's leaks, and making sure that's all solved, and moving up the levels. And I think only from that top level is the best place to serve. Ultimately, buying back my freedom, my time, other people in my life's time, and being able to go and travel with them, take people with me, take my teams with me, be able to step back. Like one of my goals last year was to step back a wee bit.
Yeah.
I've been hustling for 15 years, like certain points 7 days a week.
Yeah.
So I've done what it takes to like be able to say I want to step back.
Yeah.
Versus like there's people who want to be in my position I'm in today, but it takes 15 years to get your experience in your mind to this point where you're skilled enough to be able to do what I'm doing, to like expand that 5% to 20%. Like I'm probably expanding that 5%. It's more than 5% now.
Yeah.
But I'm doing in the right order now. And that's how I'm able to do that sustainably. Because if you do that too soon, you expand that 5% too soon, it's not sustainable until you've got your foundations and you're moving up the levels of the Maslow's hierarchy of needs. So that's where I got the triangle upside down, and I was trying to serve from an empty cup. So serve from the saucer, as you say.
It also reminds me of the Wealth Lighthouse as well.
Yeah.
You can't skip the levels. Like you go through the levels from, being in a place where you're, not financially sustainable.
Yeah.
You have negative cash flow.
Yeah.
To being financially sustainable, to then having a surplus and being able to get more people involved in what you're doing. To that, going up the levels to the point where you're able to have an influence on a much bigger scale, because anything that you do is then going through, your team and multiple layers and levels.
Exactly.
Of like, there's people involved in such a large scale.
Yeah.
And
it's always, like I said, it's sort of like rained down from you.
Yeah.
Like that ice bath challenge experience that I had, all of that experience is now in me, and that's going to trickle down into everyone in my life.
Yes.
And I've seen it happen. Everyone's doing ice baths like around me now, or like been trying it, like been doing it with me, and being influenced in some way. Like it took 200 days for my wife to jump into an ice bath as well.
Yeah.
So like influence is real. It's if you serve yourself first, it serves everyone. Like look after you, like make sure you're aligned with your purpose, you're happy, you're joyful most of the time, and then from that perspective you can maybe start thinking about others. But a lot of people do that too soon, and they think they're doing the right thing, but actually it's the wrong thing. And I got that wrong, and I'm a kind person. I care about being kind. I want to heal people, I want to help people, I want to serve people, but you got to get that order right.
Yeah, it's really interesting you mentioned the Maslow's hierarchy of needs. Like, what I will say is, like, I really much relate to what you're saying there. And the only reason that I can sit here doing this with you is because, you know, I've also
You've
been
taken care
through
of that foundation.
those levels. Yeah, exactly. And I can't sit here doing this with you every single day of every week, but, you know, we can spend 3 hours on a Friday because I spent this whole week working, for example.
Yeah,
To make sure that that is
It's
taken
Friday.
care of. Yeah, exactly. That's taken care of, so that we can come and sit here and relax into this time and enjoy it and
Yeah.
spend it doing what we love.
And it's not like I'm down here every weekend seeing
Yeah.
you. It's like I organise this with my wife.
Yeah.
It says, can I go to Vir's birthday weekend? Can I go to London? Like, can I come out of my responsibility of being a dad of 4 children
Yeah.
and leave that to my wife? Is she okay with that? Like, it took coordination to do this. So again, I'm still in a bit of the struggle phase. Obviously not completely, because I am here. We're organised enough to be here, but I've got a big responsibility back at home.
Yeah.
And businesses that are still not where I want them to be. So these are my focuses right now, and that's where I've really been a bit more patient with myself, and with that 5%, 10% project, I'm allowing that to happen gradually, because I can see my businesses gradually getting better, my life gradually getting easier as we're going to stop having children, but as our children grow up, it will get easier.
Yeah.
So me and my wife Gemma.
Wait till they become teenagers.
Yeah. So we have this future vision
Yeah.
of things are going to get easier. We've agreed that we're not going to have more children.
Yeah.
But we may. You never know with us. But things are going to get easier. And it's not just about that. As we know, things don't get easier, you get better.
Exactly. Yeah.
So that's what's really about. Like, you just see us when I've focused on business for 15 years straight, full time.
Yeah.
Full time entrepreneur, real deal business owner. Well, I've not really always been a business owner. I've been self-employed for a lot of that time.
Yeah.
But I've become more of a business owner.
With the team in place
thinking
now.
that way, yeah. But through that self-employed entrepreneur experience of 15 full hardcore years, like, things do get easier, because you just have this knack, like this instinct to say things the right way, to sell, to market. Like, you just get really good at things if you do it for that long. Mastery we were talking about. So things are getting easier in the financial side of the way of life, but also in like my emotional intelligence. I've been working on this stuff with you for a long time now. So my emotional intelligence, I don't snap at people. I was talking about earlier, my mood's great all the time. I'm able to deal with like challenges a lot better and control like how I deal with them, and be more consistent and be more disciplined, and like show up even when I'm not feeling good. And like in the past, I would just like collapse. I would just like crumble under the type of pressure I'm dealing with today. So it's definitely the fact that you get better, and life gets better.
The question I had was, how do you fill up your cup? For you specifically, like, what fills up your cup?
The bliss we talked about. So bliss, football, cardio, any type of intense sport, like football, long distance running, races, park run, 5Ks, things like that. I go to the gym, I go to the sauna, ice baths sometimes, funnily enough.
Okay.
Like, I need a space from that for a while, but then like ice baths can fill up your cup.
Yeah.
Nice food. I'm a foodie. I love my food so much that I've given myself a sore stomach. But I love my coffee. I love my food. Like, simple stuff. Like, I'm quite simple in how I'm pleased. Like, I don't like cars. I'm not into cars. I'm not a car person. Like, I like the look of some certain cars, like Ferraris and Lamborghinis and Mercedes and things like that, but I'm not really that into that. Like, I love like eating out, nice food, eating in even. I really enjoy cooking. I realise I've reconnected with that recently. I've been making nice soups since I've not been feeling well for the last 2 weeks and not be able to stomach certain things. So I intuitively thought to myself, like, I'm going to get ingredients for organic vegetable soup, and that's going to be soothing on my body, and I'm going to heal through like food being the medicine. So I love cooking, but I've just been so busy, like I've not done it.
Yeah.
And I've let my wife just cook all the meals. But yeah, I like cooking my lunch and my breakfast, and I like now newfound cooking soups. But I really got into that mindful chef for a while. So
Okay.
certain things like slow things like that can be quite like soothing, relaxing.
We talked
you get
about
into flow.
slow music as well earlier as well. Like,
Yeah.
take nice kind of calm,
Mellow, yeah.
mellow music. That's the
Like
word.
coffee shop music sort of thing. But I like reading books,
Yeah.
love listening to audiobooks. I love a workshop, like any type of workshop. I was doing like
Yeah.
cave time, writing down like what I'll remove from my life, what I'll add to my life into the next year. I love doing stuff like that. I love journaling. I love doing this, just chatting, sharing. So I've got lots of friends. Like I've got friends like you that I'm able to talk on the same wavelength.
Yeah.
I don't find a lot of people that I can talk on the same wavelength, but when I find those unique people, like I latch onto them because they're unique and it's enjoyable. I'd find low energy daily conversation about the weather like just so mundane and so boring. Like I find it difficult to
Yeah.
do small talk.
Yeah.
I like to go very deep with conversations and do 3 hour long podcasts like this
Yeah.
on all things. That's what I like. So if you can combine them as well, if you can go for a run, have those conversations, have a coffee, have nice foods, like have friends and like deep conversations, like those kind of things combined, like I would be happy if I could just do that like regularly, like
Yeah.
and then build my businesses and spend time with my kids around that. Like I don't need a huge amount. So that's to answer your question. Of what was your question?
The question was, what fills up your cup?
Yeah, so that's what fills up my cup is all of those things. What fills up your cup, Virr?
Like I'm an extrovert, right? So I love being around people. I find if I'm isolated for too long, I get grumpy. I get down and sad and whatever. So definitely spending time with people, with my friends, with my family. I grew up in a house with like 7 people, lots of noise, lots of activity all the time, but also meaningful connection. I actually also really enjoy this one-to-one time. Like it doesn't have to be like going and spending time with 7 people, 10 people, whatever. It's also get a lot of energy and fill up my cup through these one-to-one. I spend so much of my time actually having one-to-one experiences with people, and I love it. It's really energizing for me. It's so magical to get to really know someone else and really, really get to know them to that deep level. I love, science and, learning or reading or watching videos about science, especially quantum physics, about, cooking as well. Like I found, me and my mum watched one of the cooking shows, MasterChef, and they made tiramisu, and I was like inspired to make some tiramisu. And so cooking as well, absolutely love cooking. But I also love, actually you've got me into this, is going to saunas as well. So spas. Spas. I'm going to the gym quite consistently now for the last 3 months. I really love that. I've had a little break while I've had an injury, pulled my muscle, but otherwise like still, getting back into it now, doing that good for my body. The saunas to help relax and rest, and doing the cave time as well, like you said, really doing a lot of I love doing reflection, visioning, the meditations. Something recently is that Rishi's introduced me to is face masks. Like buying like these face masks that you put. And I did this like 2 days ago, so my skin is a little bit nicer than normally, and just like it's self-care, it's self-love. You just put on this like face mask that's got a lot of ingredients that help to, like, I don't know, do something to clear up the dead stuff on your face and all of that stuff. So a lot of self-care. I've had baths as well recently, but yeah, reading. I love reading so much. Like I've read so many books. I'm still reading lots of books. So yeah, a lot of different things. But I think we're aligned on
quite similar things.
quite a few of them. Yeah, exactly.
Basically, twins.
Yeah.
Yeah, when you said like really, really getting to know people, like that's definitely something I think we both connect on, and why we've went so deep with like each other in terms of how long we've done conscious conversations.
Yeah.
But also like you're saying, I've come down to London, I've made that effort to come all the way down here. I've got no specific agenda, like we just sort of made a plan and I was following along with your plan.
Yeah.
So like I think it's really important for me today, like I had a large group of friends, and I sort of walked away from that group, but to focus on my business. Nothing wrong with them. We just had different interests. Like they were still enjoying partying and drinking, and I kind of wanted to get out of that. I was trying to let go of alcohol in my life, and I was finding it hard with them. So I actually had to separate myself from that group, and I ended up being like alone, not having any friends. So like when I found you as a friend, like we're saying, like twins, like in how we think.
Yeah.
Finding that was really important to me because I was alone at that time, and I was just on this journey on my own, like doing things all on my own. And I found like it much more enjoyable to like share the experience with you. And there's certain things I would speak to you that I couldn't like speak to my wife about because my wife wasn't fully on the same page as me.
She hadn't been to the workshop.
She hadn't been to the workshop, so she was getting everything that I was learning first, and she was getting second hand. And she's sort of like coming up with me, like she's learning all this. She's kind of into it all now.
Very conscious.
Really conscious now, and like it's great. But at that time, it wasn't the case. I was almost like I was getting it wrong as well. I was trying to teach her. I was trying to stuff it down her face, whereas you were receptive to that, and you were that allowing that output that I needed to output.
Yeah.
Like I wanted this, there was part, like if I'm not sharing, I've said, if I'm not reading and sharing, if I'm not learning and sharing, I'm not being myself. Like you need to call me out because I'm not going to be happy.
You know what, it's funny, I get that. Like even at the time for me as well, like there's two things that I went maybe a little bit overboard with, was the experiences I had when I was traveling, and also Super Genius, right? Like and all of the stuff I learned around like Tony Robbins, all that stuff. Like my friends, you know, really basically like made a lot of jokes. They still make some jokes sometimes about Super Genius. Like it's actually nothing against Super Genius. I used to be like actually quite annoyed at them about it, but I realized there's actually nothing about Super Genius that they're making fun of. They're making fun of how intensely I was trying to force it on them, and same with the travel. I was like, guys, like this is so crazy, like you need to. Eventually they were like, okay, Vera, like we get it, you need to shut up, like, you know, you've talked about this so much, kind of thing, with the travel specifically. So like, yeah, just like how you really want to share it with people,
Yeah,
but not everyone.
you don't have the community to share it with.
Yeah, not everyone's interested. That's what I love. Something I haven't talked about is like the curate, you know, Louis Scott, finding him, working with him, doing the curate level 1 certification, joining that community as well. You know,
Yeah.
It's been amazing. I worked with Manmeet and did some workshops that she ran, and did the Guilt, Pride and Shame workshop as well. So, you know, having been part of these communities, I'm still part of these communities actually, and being able to engage with other people who are also interested in this stuff is
similar stuff,
really powerful.
Yeah. It's really important to have that community, and you shouldn't do it alone. That was a bad time in my life. So I think like finding your people, but like it's good to wait as well to find your people. Like at the same time, it was better to be alone at that stage than to be with the wrong people. Yeah. So it allowed that space to go and meet someone like you, and then start finding other people like Scott, and you know, all these friends that I've got now that are on the same wavelength, that want to talk about wealth, want to talk about consciousness, want to talk about health, want to go for a run with me, things like that. So it's great to have that. So thank you so much, Ben, for coming down to London and booking this podcast studio with me to record this. I'm so excited to edit this and put this out. So is there any message you want to share before we finish up? It's actually that message there. Oh yeah? What does it say? It's along the lines of, don't let your dreams just stay as dreams. Like, actually put your dreams into a plan. That's been a huge thing for me in the last year. Putting your dream, your vision, your goals into a plan. I used to be so, like, I didn't have anyone who guided me how to make plans. But since I got involved with you, Shiv, and Property Entrepreneur by Dan Hill and Josh Keegan and guys, like, I've really learned how planning works and how valuable it is, how like things actually get done.
Yeah.
Like, I'm a guy of variety and like I love to do loads, but it's really helped me to focus. So planning is about having a plan and then focusing and not deviating from that. And if you do that, at the end of each year, you'll actually achieve things rather than like go an inch in this direction, an inch in this, an inch in 1,000 directions. You'll take all those inches, put it to one line, and you'll go
a mile.
Right, and you'll hit the goals that you set out. As long as you focus and you don't go off your plan. So you need to set a plan, stick to it quite diligently. You can't let yourself wobble off of that too much. But
you make adjustments along the way, but it is very much about like making decisions
for a year
from the plan.
Yeah.
And actually, I feel like this really comes full circle because it's back to doing something for a year, 365 days of ice baths.
Yeah.
Saying like, okay, I'm gonna do this. This is the plan.
Yeah.
And you've stuck to it.
Yeah, I'm gonna go and get that. Can I take that?
Hopefully they don't mind.
I'm gonna get in trouble.
Amazing.
Right. And what about you?
Well, I just want to add on something to what you said before I say my one, which is, I've not mentioned this really, but something that I've been trying to do is over the last like 6 years, whilst I've learned all of these things. I remember like a year or two ago, I talked about this idea of all these puzzle pieces, right? And I like really was like, I've learned Super Genius, I've learned DeMartini, I've learned Property Entrepreneur, I've learned Wealth Dynamics, I've learned Curate, like all of these different things from different places. And I was trying to figure out how the puzzle fits together. And Quantum Buddha feels like the puzzle has complete, this is it's come bringing it all together and, just using that, what I've learned to work with people and to help people. Because we've been practicing this for 6 years. Just helping each other. And, obviously you've taught Gemma. I've taught people whilst I was traveling. I was teaching people, not working with them doing processes, but just teaching them the concepts. And now I'm taking that a step forward to actually work with people and help them to understand how to get to that pause. I want to share that message. That's the thing that's obvious for me to share, that message of pause, which means postpone action until serenity emerges. And that is a message I want to share. Postpone action until serenity emerges. Like, that is what it means to create that gap between your chimp brain, your automatic reflexes, your automatic emotional reflexes, and your conscious decisions. And if you can do that, then you can live a conscious life. You can live a happier life, because your brain is designed to keep you safe, but your soul is about fulfillment and happiness. This is another message. Happiness is not a place. It's not a thing to attain. It's a mindset. It's about being present and just accepting, surrendering. This is something we've been talking about recently, is surrendering to the reality that is. And just being fully grateful for that. Just being alive in that moment. I feel complete. I feel ready to end the podcast. So thank you so much again for joining me today. Where can people find you?
Instagram and Facebook and YouTube.
How can they find you for the ice baths? What? Because you've shared your personal Instagram before, but share your ice bath.
365 ice bath challenge.
Okay.
My personal profile is Ben Laing, Laing, number 2. That's at Ben Laing.
Thank you everyone for listening to this podcast, sticking with us for this time that we've been talking. Ben and I love talking. So you can find Quantum Buddha at quantum.buddha. We also have launched a new website, so check out that website, quantumbuddha.co.uk. And thank you very much. See you in the next episode.